And we're live. Tell me when we switch over.
There you go.
Hello, everybody. We are streaming on a Sunday because Spoon came across this lecture from our favorite monarchist, academic, scholar, polyglot, and generally just overall one of the most brilliant men I've ever come across. And I'd never heard him speak. We've also been pronouncing his name wrong for the last 2 years. Erik Ritter von Kuehnelt-Leddihn. And so Spoon's now seen it 3 times over, and he just uploaded it to his channel, which I'm sure is fine.
Yeah.
All of his books, for the most part, are available for free on the Mises Institute as well. So if you would like to read Liberty or Democracy, or Liberty or Equality, excuse me, which is the book that convinced me that monarchism was the the best
Way to go.
form of government, for sure. Also, extensive work, book on why communism is just absolutely vilely evil, as if you need more information as to why, but yeah. Really incredibly intelligent man. Now, I've not seen this because I was waiting to watch it with Spoon. Spoon's now, I think this is, you said this is your 3rd time watching through it?
Yep.
So, excuse me, I just took my allergy pill, so I'm going to be a little bit cludged up here for a minute.
It's good stuff.
But, yes. Right out the gate, Sloshy for 20 Canadian says, I thought I was going to get some reading done today, but I guess I get to listen to my favorite monarchist instead. Well, we'll get to listen to our favorite monarchist. Thank you. But this is the equivalent of doing some reading. It should be some pretty hefty stuff. So, excuse me, very again, incredibly intelligent man.
Yes.
So let's shall we?
And yeah, I posted this because I basically want to screw around. Can I make the audio sound better?
Right, yeah.
This was recorded in 1968. So if you go, wow, there's no background hissing. Why is the audio so clear? It's because I processed the shit out of it. That'll be the reason why.
Which is great. I mean, that's actually important to, like, we need to preserve stuff like this.
Yeah. I tried to do it with another one, but oh my dear God, like the other one is so
scuffed.
bad.
Yeah.
Oh, like it's beyond repair. Like I feel like I would have to send it to a professional and go, can you make this work?
Well, maybe. I mean, it might be worth doing that at some point. Imperial Crusader 21, happy birthday. Zonked on analogy meds in 5. No, I just have to take, like, I don't know. It's the winter. It's got to be dust or something. I don't know what it is. But my allergies get really bad. Most people get really bad in the spring. Mine get terrible in the winter.
Interesting.
I don't know why. I think it has something to do with dust. Did you put it in the watch together?
Mm-hmm. It's already there.
What?
It's already there. It's already up and ready to go. What
I can't see it. I don't see anything. Send me the link, I guess, again, because it's not working on my end.
Okay. Weird.
Yeah, that's odd. Oh, it's a different link, that's why.
That's because the link is yours.
Weird. Okay. Anyway, all right, it's up now. We can start.
Very strange.
Don't forget, gentlemen, before even talking about the failure of democracy in Europe, we must really know and be aware of what is really democracy.
By the way, this is not V's dad.
Yeah, he's Austrian.
Yeah.
But as you said, I do like his voice. It does sound whimsical and very very wizard. Yeah, he sounds like a wizard. It's very cool.
Someone said Dev is still seething at me on Twitter. Why? What is Dev seething at me on Twitter?
Don't know.
Has he spoken about me?
Yeah.
What has he said now? I'm curious to what he said.
I don't care.
Democracy.
Yeah, I guess.
Just a troll.
Democracy. Yeah.
Don't forget that, a political term. It's not a social term.
Mm-hmm.
And it answers the question, who should rule? And the answer it gives is the majority of politically equal citizens, either in person or through the representatives. Whereas liberalism, rightly understood, that is, liberalism is understood in the whole wide big world, with the exception of the United States, answers the question not who should rule, but how should rule be exercised. Mm-hmm. And the answer it gives is, regardless of who rules, government must be exercised in such a way that each individual citizen enjoys the maximum of personal liberty. In other words, equality in majority rule characterizes democracy. Freedom characterizes liberalism. Now, of course, there is such a thing as a liberal democracy, but obviously, liberalism could be combined with other forms of government. And a democracy can be illiberal. You can have a democracy where the 51% really and truly, brutally suppress and tyrannize the 49%
Absolutely.
or the 99% 1%.
Gee, again, like, you know, when you apply this stuff, that's why you said this was recorded in 1968, right?
It's really prescient.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's what exactly what's, you know, everything that's happened since the J6 stuff and everything, all of that, all of COVID, right? Well, and that's a very good point. You can have a form of government, say a monarchy that is liberal. You can also have a democracy that is highly illiberal. That's very important to keep in mind. And that's a point that I think almost everyone
misunderstands,
screws up. Yeah, yes. Is that there's this idea that these two things are intrinsically interlinked, but that's simply not true. After the last couple years, I don't know how you could still be under that impression, but
you should listen to who he says is a liberal monarch. It's going to make people go, how the hell is he liberal?
Interesting. Yeah. Artemis Fowl for 5 says, this will be the first stream I've ever watched on this channel after following it for so long. Well, thanks for showing up, man. I hope you enjoy. This is unusual for us. We normally do like news and politics. Minnesota Fats for 5 says, boss, I'm turning 31 this week. Well, happy birthday. Figure I'd spread some birthday cheer. Thank you. I also realize I don't have a dark sense of humor. I have an offensive one. That's the best sense of humor.
How about both?
Yeah, pretty no listeners.
You have a dark sense of
humor. A man like Louis the
Yeah.
14th, for instance, from our modern point of view, the man who allegedly had said, I am the state, was, of course, a very great liberal by modern standards.
Can we just imagine for a second a man who says, I am the state, who ruled for like 75 years, is considered a liberal by today's standards?
Of course.
I want you all to realize, can you imagine in modern day, if you had, say, someone reigned for 75 years who said, I am the state, you would immediately brand that person a dictator of the most tyrannical vibe ever.
I am the Senate.
Yes, exactly. So when you have someone like this man to say, like, he's a very liberal leader by today's standards, that is like frame breaking for
because he's defined with liberalism. Right, and it's because the definitions of these words are screwed up. Like we often talk, or sometimes talk about positive versus negative liberties, and that is also something that gets obfuscated and confused by people when they say liberty. I think it often is just my liberty is to be able to do whatever I want, essentially. But there are negative liberties. You can't kill somebody, right? You know, these are the negative liberties. No. And both things are different though. Yeah. What negative liberty is, you know, the NAP kind of stuff, right?
He couldn't draft anybody in his kingdom. If he wanted to wage a war, he had to rely on volunteers, and they had to be very well paid. He could not have, let us say, an annual general confession about the economic life of a person. If anybody wanted to make a general confession, you went, of course, to a priest, not to the collector of internal revenue. A man like Louis XIV, for instance, could...
It's deep. I mean, he's a libertarian of some sort, you know. I mean, that's obviously why he's on Mises. But yeah, just have to get in a dig there at the IRS.
Yeah. That's
excellent.
Such a good shot, though.
Excellent.
Never decree that his beloved subjects could not drink Chartreuse or Benedictine or Sauterne or Châteauneuf-du-Pape or Veuve-Clicquot.
As I mentioned, this man's actually, like, he's not just pronouncing these things in the French accent. He speaks, like, 12 different languages, or spoke 12, something like that.
I think he spoke 8 or 9 and could read 17.
Something, yeah, I think that sounds right.
Insane.
Insane. Right. Absolutely crazy. Again, like I said, one of the most brilliant men of the 20th century for sure.
Yes.
If he had done it like that, in other words, started a prohibition, his beloved subjects would have quartered him alive within 48 hours.
Yep.
But all this can be done.
Can you imagine just that? Like, America did this on the national scale, and no one said shit. But he said if France were to do this with a monarch, the monarch would get killed within 48 hours.
Right, which is one of the reasons why we say that it's a preferable system of governance, because you have one head of the Hydra,
Yes.
or one head of the snake. It's not a Hydra. Democracy is a monster with 1,000 heads, and if you cut one off, there's always another one.
Yes, and also people need to be aware of this. When you think of democracy as the fail-safe of, well, we can get out bad leaders without violence. There's two problems with this. One is
that's the contention.
Yes, well, yeah, that's the contention. But this benefits them more than you. You think this is good because you can get rid of them without violence. However, what happens to them when they get out of office? They get to keep all of their ill-gotten gains, and they walk off without a scoff.
Yeah, unless you're Trump.
Yes.
Unless you're Trump, then you become you become politically persecuted, right?
Yes, but like the point is that you think that's a good thing, but the benefits is way more on their side than it is yours. You get absolutely nothing except this weird perception of, oh, well, I got rid of someone bad, and then the next person come and do the exact same thing, and you have to wait 4 years for them to do it again.
Yeah, but they've got a different coat of paint that aligns with your ideology.
You're basically just going to sit on your hands like, oh, well, we'll get him next time, and 4 years down the line, it's just like the same thing happens over and over again. The say grows over and over again. There's no reason to call it because the people in the regime are just human beings who don't give a shit. They're careerists, and then the state gets this enormous size, and all of a sudden you're going, oh, we're not going to be able to vote away out of tyranny, and every person who's been telling you democracy turns into tyranny over time is like, didn't we fucking tell you this for like over 100 years?
We told you this. You know something, actually, I have actually come across something quite interesting when going through and reading all of Claudine Gay's research. And I came across a finding from one of her papers. Look, okay. Yeah, no, legitimately interesting. Look, she's obsessed with race. I mean, obviously, that's all of her, every single paper she's ever published, which is only 11, one of which is a working paper and isn't, I think it has not yet been published. I haven't checked it yet, though.
Hasn't she only published like 11 things in like 26 years?
Yes. Her H index is also 10, which is abysmal.
Isn't that like completely insane for someone who's like running a president of like one of the most prestigious universities in the world?
It should be insane. It should be insane. But I went through and I to like the NAACP's website or something, and it was, here's currently working professors and or head counsel at different universities across the United States who are Black. And I went through every Black woman's CV. Almost none of them are published.
I wonder why.
Like they have they have a handful of publications, but most of them are published to such a low degree that they don't even have an H index score. And I was going to say, like, I mean, I compared her to the president of I can't remember what university it was, but it was a Black woman, much older though. Like this woman's like in her 70s, and her H index was still 22, which isn't great, but better. The H index score indicates how many papers have you published versus the number of times they've been cited. So if your H index score is 10, as Claudine Gay's is, that means you have 10 papers that have been cited more than 10 times. She only has 11 papers. So that means one of them has not been cited 10 times. Now, I would also say I looked through, and some of her citations have like 500, or some of her papers have like 500 citations and are well cited, but others have like 2. That's not great. Not great in academia. That's and to have 11 publications after 27 years, 11 journal articles and 1 book. And I read the book already, so that's taken out. I mean, normally I could read like 11 papers in a day. Oh, but what I was going to say about what I found interesting is that she found really consistently that, guess what? People vote for their own race consistently. Now, but here's the thing. She has an issue when white people do it, and her evidence that white people do it more, and they technically do by the books, but she had to discount Black Republicans from their entire sample because she couldn't find any. So you're inherently judging white people voting for Black Democrats or white Democrats or white Republicans. There's no black Republicans included in her data analysis at all. And the other thing that she found in that study that I found really curious is that when you took in this ADA, which is an identifier of political ideology of a politician in terms of where do you fall on the scale between liberal and conservative, is that listen to this fucking argument, is that the reason that black people were voting, and she did do the maths on this, and I looked through it. Now I do want the raw data, and I could actually get access to them because they're from their ANS data, National Election Survey data. So I could get those ANS data if I really wanted to be autistic about it, but that's such a huge fucking project to go through and read and do all the calculations through ANS myself. Anyway, maybe I could do it. Oh, I'd have to. It'd be such a pain. Anyway, point is, black people voted for other blacks, not if they were very politically inactive, like so they don't know any. They just said I don't know anything about politics at all. Yeah, that's what they claimed. They just voted for anyone who was black. The black people who were politically motivated voted based on the political ideology. Well, just so turns out that the political ideology of every black elected congressperson at the time that was assessed in this data was far more far left than any of the white Democrats. So I don't even know if this is helping her point that she's like, well, white people vote based on race, black people vote based on ideology. They vote for a really harmful ideology. I know it's yours, but they are still voting on race too. You just don't like to downplay that. I just thought that was like everyone's voting for their own best interest, right? Which is how you get tyranny of majority. She's also upset that black people don't vote as often. It's like, well, that's because people only vote. This is another finding from her own research. And I was like, how did you not get it? Like, it's in your own research. How did you not figure this out? Because black people don't think they can win because the percent of the American population that is of voting age, and I'm not counting in people who can't vote because they have felonies in this community. Just pointing that out. It's 10%. 10% as of 2021's electoral data. Only 10% of the population is black and of voting age, and that's not this kind of people who can't vote. That's maximum output is 10.4%.
I have an interesting statistic.
And she found that curiously, in districts where like overwhelmingly the district is Latino, white people don't go out to vote because they think, why should I vote? Why? I'm not going to win. Whoever my guy is I'm not going to win because the Latinos are going to vote for their person. And it's the same thing. That's why blacks don't go out and vote. Because I think on some level, I think her contention is that like black people are being held down or whatever. But it's like maybe because if you're 10% of the population and you're voting for somebody of your own race, now then you're unlikely to win. Of course, America elected Obama twice, so I don't really think that your argument there holds up, Claudine. But anyway, I just found I can manage to still find things interesting in this stupid woman's data. That's why I love social science. I love it so much. Anyhow, I thought that was all interesting.
I just found it bizarre that when you look at blacks' obsession with politics, my immediate reaction is, have you noticed Asians have even less representation than you? They've not been in the country nearly as long as you.
Smaller portion of the population?
Yes, and yet they kick the shit out of you academically. Yep. Why do you think that is?
Well, they don't want to talk about that, but...
I'll tell you, it's because they're smarter than you, significantly. And everyone in the entire freaking world knows this. Yeah. This is just like this uncomfortable thing that nobody wants to mention. And when you look at it and you go, everyone knows they're smarter. The whole world knows you're smarter. But for some bizarre reason, we need to walk on eggshells, even though half of you fucking morons don't even know Africa is a continent, not a country. Yeah,
I mean, true. But I think that in terms of Claudine Gay's research, I actually can't find errors in it.
I'm so oppressed that it says the black person who's the first president of freaking Harvard who's black. It's like, dude, please stop this crap of you're black and oppressed. You literally got voted in because you're freaking black, and you're telling me you're oppressed. If it wasn't for your skin color, you wouldn't be president. How the hell are you oppressed, you twat?
Right. Well, I know. And I have not been able to find errors in her data. Now, I don't have access to the back end, so nothing that I'm going to be able to do in my analysis is going to be able to uncover if she did bad data. I could do that if I went in and got the ANES data, because that is the one thing that's interesting. I wouldn't have to ask her for her data because I can see the analysis and it can be replicated. I would like someone smarter than me and better at statistics than I am, because I'm not the best to be. I mean, I know how to do it, but I don't know. I would rather have somebody who does it more professionally than I do to run that through, because you should be able to get all those data from ANES. Most of her other work uses national level surveying data. If it's national level surveying data, it means that it's publicly available. So anyone should be able to get access to it. You can rerun the calculations. I would, I want because now that she's under scrutiny for the plagiarism, I do want the people who investigated Eric Stewart. They should go in and double check her numbers. I think that would be interesting. See if that's correct. Nothing that I can see prima facie is wrong. It's just that she comes up with the data themselves seem fine to me, but then she goes on a little tirades at the end of every freaking article about what this means for Black people and why it's so important and stuff. It's like, I don't think that you're getting even. I can't even interpret your data the way that you're interpreting them. It's your conclusions that are warped because you've got an agenda. But that's exactly the same shit though that goes back to that. It's like, yeah, people do not vote. People vote to tyrannize each other. We've seen it every time. To go back to Kuehnelt-Leddihn, I'll get these super chats there real quick before we get back to it. Gary Thomas for 5 says
super fast.
Oh, sorry.
When Aydin gets giddy, she speeds up.
Because I'm excited because I was reading data today.
Yes.
I was reading papers and I get all excited when I read academic reports. Gary Thomas for 5 says, "Hey Dynamic Duo," even if it's from a terrible one. "Hey Dynamic Duo, sorry I haven't been able to super chat lately. Don't worry about that, man. Money's been tight. It often is this time of year. I mean, it's the holidays. It's a tough time. Also found this audio very interesting on Spoon's channel. Well, yeah, I'm excited to listen to the rest of it. We managed to get 2.5 minutes in. Redneck Ram gave 20 gifted subs or memberships. Thank you so much, Redneck Ram. Deadpool Kid for 5 says, yeah, that's awesome. It says, hey guys, hope you're doing well. And also, Hail Hydra. Hail Hydra. Guardian Dark Angel for 5 says, I mean, look at Obama for proof of that. Yeah, that was my immediate thought. Yeah. Redneck Ram also became a member. And welcome to Night. Thank you. Zim the Despot for 10 says, hey Spoon, how are you today? I was wondering, based off my comment on your last video, who in the UK's royal family would be the best ruler? My knowledge of the royal family is rather limited.
Prince Andrew.
Oh, yeah, probably. He said some crazy shit.
The reason I say Prince Andrew is because he'd be too busy diddling children to actually fuck up the country.
Is that why? He's he's a fucking lunatic. Okay. Yep. I don't know if that's really the best choice. I know you're memeing a little bit, but okay.
Who would I think the best leader? Probably Prince William's kid.
Yeah. What's his name?
And get Jacob Rees-Mogg as the steward.
Oh,
like
yeah,
interim
based.
Regan.
Based. Yes, we were talking to Sargon and having a little public spat with Scrump.
It was not a particularly good one.
No, I don't think it was a great look for Carl.
It was very strange because I sort of looked at him.
It was strange.
Yeah, I'm actually going to do a video on it. Not to have a go with Sargon. I'll send you the script later because I sent it to Scrump and he said, yeah, it was good. Because I was being very fair because I just looked at... I sent it to a bunch of people and everyone just said, what the fuck is Sargon doing?
What is he on about?
No one could understand his position. Because
so,
I just find it
we should
very
probably...
bizarre.
Do you have it? The tweeter? What the hell? The Twitter thread. Just what he said. Yeah, so that people know what we're talking about. If we're gonna go on a little side here, because I did a point about it where it relates. It relates to Leddin's lecture here, which is that there are people I think who are really married to democracy as an idea, and they struggle to go to really like parse the thing that Dr. Leddihn just said there, which is that democracies can be very illiberal. We have to be able to separate these things, that liberty and democracy are not intrinsically linked.
Yeah, that's the one. There you go.
Did you send it to me? Okay.
No.
Let me see. Because I remember reading it and being like, what the fuck? Okay. Right. Oh yeah, there was a little tiff. Why were they... How did it even start? Oh god, it went on for a minute. Oh, right.
The armpit thing.
So I don't want to have to set up to share my screen and stuff and have to change it. But it's No Most Events, which is Scrump's Twitter account, says having a parasocial debate about metaphysics. First Carl says he posted this picture of a trans woman pointing with her middle finger to her armpit, and I'm being nice. This person seems really gross though, if I'm being honest. And it says God is a trans woman tattooed on the armpit. Carl posts it and says, Transgenderism requires one to be born in the wrong body, thus necessitating a soul that exists prior to our state instantiation in the world. Materialism, of course, cannot provide this metaphysic. I agreed with that post by Sargon, by the way.
Yeah, so do
I saw it and I was
but
like,
yeah, it's true. But like to put that in a non-wanky way, it's basically Sargon saying human beings need some elements of divinity, otherwise the human form will be scarred and damaged by some twisted psychopaths who all think they should be done in the name of progress. That's essentially the message of the tweet.
Yeah, Scrump responded, having a parasocial debate about metaphysics with a transsexual's armpit tattoo is almost an act of anti-woke self-parody.
I mean, I thought that was pretty funny.
It is.
It's
Look,
true.
first one. Okay,
It's
I
true.
agree with Sargon. Okay, I agree with his point. I also agree with Scrump's point that it's crazy that this is a thing at all. That you've posted a picture of a transgender person pointing to their pit and made and commented on it about metaphysics. Like, I mean, it's just.
Yes, it seems a bit absurd.
Carl responds, obviously you're defensive about trannies, lol. What is the base position on transgenderism, by the way? Evelyn, who is trans, responds, like the people gasping at Epstein or the years spent talking about grooming gangs, the horrors of transgenderism must be dealt with, not complained about. Unless of course you are happy to see the current regime fix these things. He responds, which means. Evelyn responds, build an organization and tackle these things. Don't just use them as low rent methods for online engagement. I understand that. I do understand Evelyn's point there. Unfortunately, I don't know what we're supposed to do. Most of us, other than point and laugh at it, essentially.
Yes,
that's why they hate free speech so much, is because pointing and laughing is what is their biggest enemy.
I can understand the lols, but then if Sargon just did that instead of just the metaphysical thing, it comes across as like academically wanky. It comes across like a posh way of mockery in a way that even my pretentious sort of self would go, I don't quite know what the point of that was. It does seem the parasocial thing that Scrum said.
Carl asks, no, what does dealing with the horrors of transgenderism entail in your view? Scrump says, none of the outgrowths of the rule of the current elite go away without the current elite being replaced. The issue is not the symptoms of their rule. Yep. Well, as you guys probably know, Scrump's a fellow monarchist, so.
Yes.
The issue is not the symptoms of their rule. Yeah, don't waft away the smell, but leave the turd sitting there. Activists are not your pressing enemy. Those in power are. I agree.
That's 100% correct. I don't know what you have this. That's flawless.
Yeah. Carl says, it's weird you're so evasive on this. Why not just directly answer the question?
He just did.
Evelyn says, yeah, well, Scrump and Evelyn both did, which was basically the same sentiment, is that you have to go for the head on this. Going after these this person in this picture, right, is mentally ill, obviously. But their mental illness has been facilitated, provoked, and encouraged by a system that is far larger than them. And from a bunch of people in positions of power that have encouraged this, that are encouraging people to essentially remove themselves from the gene pool, and encouraging people to go out and be insane and create more insanity in society so they gain more power. You don't criticizing this person who, on some level, I feel sorry for. I mean, look at them. Jesus. I know they're not on the screen, guys, but you can imagine.
Their identity is basically a currency of social clout in the regime. And so the perspective of Scrump and Evelyn is you must cull the regime's currency to get rid of this thing. And something that I've noticed that Sargon, I'm not saying he does think like this, and if he does, then Jesus Christ, that's terrifying. He doesn't seem to be able to separate, not even transgenderism, just those who have sexual identities and proclivities outside of the traditional norm. He doesn't seem to grasp that is a substantial amount of the growth is obviously politically provocated. It's not completely organic, but that doesn't mean every single one of them is. Like, you can have people who are of that persuasion in the categorical sense, but they obviously don't agree with the politics, hence why you can have people like Douglas Murray or Blair White. Yes.
Right, yeah. So or Evelyn right here. Like what she said is, I answered you in my quote tweet, we reject modernity and all of its horrors. And which technically, Evelyn would be a part of modernity's horrors if we're including transgenderism in that.
Yeah, so I don't exactly say how they're saying like this is a virtue signal. I'm like, Sargon, how the hell did that make any sense?
I mean, jeez, that's got to be difficult if you're someone who like Evelyn who feels, or Blair White, who has this gender dysphoria, right? But knows that transgenderism is political at this point. We're talking about a video. We're reading a Twitter thread. Do you want me to? I could try to switch over, but I didn't think it was worth bringing up because we were just doing a little side thing here.
Yeah, ask the chat.
Huh?
It's not a video.
No, I'll just do it here. Hang on a second.
It's just a strange Twitter thread that.
Should I? Let me just show it so that people can see it, because I think
it's very strange because it made me go, Sargon, what the hell are you talking about? This is a very weird thing for you to do.
Here, I'm sharing my screen now.
Hold on.
Uh-oh. Remove this tab.
I'm not gonna ask.
Everybody uses poll. Come on.
Oh, okay, yes.
Look at the other wholesome thing I'm looking at. I have in my tabs. Let's see. Okay, so here's the Twitter thread. Here you now see the person if you've got it up, Spoon.
Yeah, just give me a second.
So it's I should have shown it from the beginning so we don't just talking about it. It was meant to be a quick aside. Hopefully it won't take too much longer. Just because this was a weird interaction.
Yes. There you
go. Okay, so here's
that's clearly a dude.
Yeah. Yes. So, Scrump replies, "We've addressed this multiple times in long form." Posts a link. Carl says, "Answer it in this conversation now. I know you won't understand, but on a Saturday at lunchtime, I don't have time to watch long form content." I mean,
that is such a arrogant, condescending thing to say.
It is
you're sitting here on Twitter arguing, Sargon.
But they already did answer you, and then they already answered you, and then you
come across like an asshole.
A little bit. Come on.
Yeah.
Dude. Evelyn reposts her answer. Carl says, "So you intend to revel in the degeneracy of the liberal order while making abstract appeals to a revolutionary future that won't happen. Amazing."
Tell that to everyone who tried.
Well, what are we supposed to do?
This is like the stupidest argument. Like, it won't ever happen. Like, how do you know if you don't try? You're just gonna sit here and stew in the current misery? What a stupid defeatist that is.
It's fine to mock this stuff. It's fine to point it out, but at some point, I mean, you need to advocate for an alternative.
Yes.
Scrump, Evelyn, Spoon, and myself are advocating for an alternative. That is not just going back 50 years and restarting the system and restarting the cycle.
Yes. 500 years,
right. Is it or not? It's not even 50s. Most of them just want to go back to the 80s and the 90s. It's like, 30, 40 years.
Yes. Basically Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Right. And it's like that. But if we just turn back time and go back to, 1980 or 1985
Can we just go
style
back to
politics.
the 1990s so I can just jizz in my, stew in my jisms for all of eternity? That's basically what most people want.
But then what is the future you can hope for your children? And Carl's got kids, like 4 or 5 or something like that. I don't know. Something like that, like 4 kids. He's got multiple children. Shouldn't you want the future for them to be better longitudinally, not just restarting the same thing that would then put them in the position where we are now? Because I mean, that's the definition of insanity, right? Is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah,
if we just
is insane.
turn back to 1990 and did it all again, and I agree, the most liberal time in history, and by a lot of definitions, probably was the 90s.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Though. But the democratic system is not actually set up as the best protector, as we're going to get back to Leddihn, because that's going to be his argument, is not the best protector of that liberty.
No. And Hans Hermann Hoppe agrees.
And if you don't have a more protective system, such as a monarchy, I would argue, you're just going to see a repeat of the same descent into degeneracy. And it is, I do think the stuff with the trans stuff is a little bit like, Evelyn is critiquing the culture around it that's degenerate, despite also suffering from this problem. You know what I mean?
You know how's a good way to describe this?
Mm-hmm.
That people don't want to talk about because think of it this way. Imagine if how can I describe this? let's say you had a society where a lot of people had a very bad drinking problem.
Mhm.
Right? And you have 2 or 3 people who are strong advocates of removing the drinking culture, but they are heavy drinkers themselves. Here is the kicker, though. The 2 people who are very heavy drinkers, they don't get belligerently drunk. They don't stumble as
Yeah.
they walk. They don't slur
Yeah.
their words. They don't get into fights, and they don't show up to work drunk or hungover. They function perfectly fine. Better than most people, in fact.
Yeah.
On face value, to see them say, you should stop drinking, but we're not going to, the immediate reaction is, who the hell do you think you are to speak this way? So everyone else can get the green light. So you can get the green light to drink, but everyone else
This
will
is a really
stop.
good analogy, yeah.
Yes, and then they will just say, like, do you think you're better than everybody else? Like, yes, because they objectively are. They don't exhibit the follies of their habits the way that you do. That you're talking about people at scale here, and nothing is absolute. There always are exceptions to the rule, and the people who don't like it, they just reek of envy because they aren't the exceptions.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's like, yeah, Blair White, and I guarantee Evelyn is not a big fan of Blair White, but people like Blair White and Evelyn there are exceptions to the rules, and not that they're not engaging in the overt, like, extreme degeneracy, trying to groom kids stuff that we see all over the place which is the problems with this transgenderism is political. It's a disease, it's a mental disorder that needs to be treated. And I guarantee both of them, I know Blair White would agree with that, and I'm 99% sure that Evelyn would as well. I don't know Evelyn as well, in terms of I've heard her speak less about it, but I'm sure that that's her opinion on it too.
Do you know what's stupid though?
Pretty sure. Yeah.
This is where Sargon looks like is taking a
the thread gets worse, by the way.
But this is where Sargon is taking a fat L, is that he seems to think this is an outgrowth of politics. So you have people
transgender stuff.
Yes, and you have people now who are advocating for changing the regime who are further right than you. By your own logic, Sargon, you should be encouraging them. In fact, you should be further right than the people you're currently criticizing.
Yeah, but like I said, I really, and I've heard, I watch Lotus Eaters pretty much every day.
But Sargon is wedded to this romantic idea of the Shire.
I think that's it, and that liberalism is I think he does believe that it needs to come hand in hand with democracy, which is again
really
as we started,
which is really weird because he's an Englishman. Sargon, your best empire was under a monarchy. Like, what are you talking about?
It's difficult. It's difficult for people to. I mean, that's not like I'm not trying to be condescending.
You defend monarchy constantly against the Americans who misunderstand it, but when it comes to your own country, you don't want to go back to it, even though your best years was under a monarchy. It's like so weird to me.
If we could just let Harry.
You're
trying to convince him.
Like, you're a European, Sargon. To be a European is to be a monarchist. Like, it is in your DNA, sure, especially like if you are English, French, and German. I would consider it an insult to your national identity if you don't advocate for the return of a kingdom.
Not just them.
Democracies and republics are gay. No offense, America. Okay, some offense, Americans. Like Washington would have been better taking the crown, and Hamilton agrees. But the truth of it is, Europe's rise, like Leddihn says this himself, like Europe's rise was in Christianity and monarchies, its decay in republicanism and progressivism.
Yeah, and it reminds me very much, and I talked to you about this, and I'll say it. I got into like a weird little tiff on Twitter with Dr. James Lindsay the other day, where he was talking about, because I don't know, Dr. Lindsay, I don't know what's going on with Dr. Lindsay. I've known him. We're not like friends, but he knows me. I think we've had conversations and stuff.
He does not like being attacked from the right.
No, but he's been going on these rants about Christianity on Twitter for like weeks, really right around Christmas, which is a weird time of year to go ham. Huh? Yeah, he's a secularist.
Yes, which doesn't. I would like to, if I could, I'd like to see him read The Good Pagan's Failure.
Yeah,
I'd like to send him that book and go like, read this. I want to hear your critiques.
He might have good critiques on it. But he was just going on this little, like, he's been going on these tirades on Twitter talking about Christianity is actually bad, and we don't want to go back because I think much like Sargon, he's like has these memories of sort of like of the satanic panic of Christian. He uses the term Christian nationalism all the time, And it's like, where are all these Christian nationalists? James, I'm not sure where they are. But I just said
They're
something
sitting
like,
in Congress next to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
right, but you respect Western cultural values. In this tweet in particular, he was talking about Western
it
cultural
comes from
values.
Christianity.
And I said, I don't think you can totally separate those from Christianity. And I told us to Scrump earlier, who's not religious, by the way, who's not religious, but he agreed. Scrump, who is the other guy in this conversation with Carl, said, he's like, yeah, I'm not a Christian, but I think that's correct. And then he told me, I said it like really polite. Like, well, I said
the same thing.
Yeah, I said
V
like
even said himself that he's not a Christian, but he can understand that Christianity has produced good morals.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I said something like, in all due respect, Dr. Lindsay, which is like how I phrased the tweet. I was like really fucking polite, because I think we're like sort of like internet friends, you know. And I said I think that you can't divorce them. That what you're calling Western moral values and ethics is not divorceable from Christian morals and ethics. And he just said, I don't give a fuck what you think. And I'm like, okay, and I just like, LOL, all right, fuck. And this is the same thing where it's just like, I don't know why, but there is like this pushback. And I think a lot of it, like I said, it goes back to this fear of like the satanic panic and the right wing in the 80s being like very anti-gay, very anti the Christian conservative right that were kind of nutty, but were also correct. You know what I mean? Like they were right. The people who were talking about that slippery slope with the gay marriage stuff, they were correct. Yeah. Were they not? We're here talking about trannies on Twitter right now.
Oh, this
is a thing.
Jake, Andrew, the guy who was on the Whatever podcast you just mentioned, his editor actually reached out to me on Twitter.
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, his editor said like he watched, they were on the server and someone linked my videos. So I'm like, holy crap, that's quite weird. Like, I just watched this guy like, oh yeah, I'm the editor for his programs. And we watch your shit. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Nice. Let me get back. Let's finish this thread and then get back to the video. So Carl says, so you intend to revel in the degeneracy of the liberal order while making abstract appeals to a revolutionary future that won't happen. Amazing. Trump replies, I think a belief, even an abstract one, in a truly revolutionary future for the right is more productive than shouting online in an armpit.
I mean, that's true. I don't see why that's wrong.
Yeah. Striving for something better, making arguments for something better, not just to go rewind the clock. And I mean, look, we make fun of shit all the time on this, podcast channel. We do it all the time. We make fun of crazy lefty stuff.
Because you need some humor.
But
you can't just
what do you want to happen?
Theory all the time.
Right. And and this is going to be a theory heavy video when we go back to the Leddihn, obviously. But you have to provide an alternative, right? You have to say, okay, this is hilarious and wrong and messed up. How do we fix it?
And for that, we will need our friends, Mr. Bronze Age Pervert.
Just putting stopgaps on it is clearly not working, right? Because, I mean, the conservatives, all they do is just, both in the UK and in the US, they put little stopgaps in, and you're like, well, no, that's too far. No, you can't cut the genitalia off of 8-year-olds. You can cut the genitalia off of 16-year-olds. What? Like, that's the kind of stopgaps they put in. It's still moving. The progressive march through history is progressing as intended to the left, to pure insanity. You have to give an alternative. You have to at least have some kind of answer. And that's what I think most of us are trying to do here. What I think probably Kuehnelt-Leddihn was trying to do.
I feel like Bronze Age Pervert would be like Caesar's Legion.
Maybe.
Not quite the extreme, but I do feel like he does have an element of... Did you see the post that he put up on Twitter a while ago? He put up a post on Twitter a while ago. Yes. That was like rather based. Mm-hmm. Someone said, who is the best contemporary philosopher? I think PragerU put it. And someone posted a picture of Bronze Age Pervert and just said, no competition. And his quote was, ancient men conquered cities, put them in the sword and fire. Meanwhile, you go to a wine bar with a girlfriend and enjoy tasteful banter. You are gay in full caps.
Based.
I'm like, damn, like, holy crap. Like, yeah, that's...
Bill's like a big fan of Bronze Age Pervert.
I can see why. They're basically kindred spirits.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I feel like if Bill could have his way, he would produce an army and basically take over the island of Guernsey by force.
I mean, he's considered it.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I would probably just say, like, can I have a stake in this regime? I would like to cook for the soldiers. Like, I would
Please.
actually like to do that, like, legitimately, because everyone likes food, and hungry men need food, and cooking large meals is fun.
All right. Let me get back to those threads so we can get back to the lecture.
Yeah, it is an epic tweet.
Carl responds, "You're upset I attacked your fetish and brought into resolution that you love the liberal order and all the degeneracy it permits. You're a hedonist who pretends to be ultra right wing for clout online." I don't know how much clout Scrum gets for this. Between
Yeah,
mouthfuls of girl dick, you denounce the liberal order, amusing to be honest.
I've noticed that Sargon at no point addresses what either Evelyn or Scrub even said.
No.
He's just going on like a personal tirade. I'm like, this does not look good, Sargon. This makes you look like an asshole.
Yeah.
Like someone just saying, hey, look, here is the things that we have a problem with in the regime. Can we please focus on that? And he just says like, no, because you're like a degenerate. I kind of want to ask Sargon. Sargon, by that logic, does that mean I can just quote whatever Evelyn and Scrum said back at you? Because me, by virtue of not being as degenerate as them, it will somehow mean more coming from me.
I just think that this is...
I mean, by that
This is
logic,
not-
that's what I could do.
None of this is useful.
No, it's
Like-
just stupid.
And this is why the right always loses, by the way. Is because of this kind of shit. Anyhow. Evelyn responds, "That's unnecessary. We are asking what your plan is beyond awareness on the issues. Why are you making it personal?" Which is exactly
question.
what I just said. Exactly what I just said is that you have to... Okay, awareness, that's fine. Good. That's part of it. Yes, that is part of it. But then what? What then?
I don't understand the next bit.
Carl says, "The personal is political. It's true.
Yes,
You are
if you're a
literally
Puritan in the Soviet Union.
right.
Otherwise,
You are
no. Like,
literally-
what are you talking about?
You're literally in no position to criticize, and at no point have you and Scrump said I am wrong." Well, but they've given you a proposition.
Yes, and you've just
And
attacked them personally.
Yeah, you have merely tried to obfuscate my attack on your fetish.
Because
I'm not
your attack
having
on
it.
your fetish has no freaking basis in this argument,
It's-
Sargon. That's their point.
Right.
Like,
Until you lead virtuous lives and stop reveling in degeneracy, everything you say will be an embarrassing LARP which implicitly reveals that you agree with the liberal order.
I
I'm
don't
not
know
going
how
to be
that makes any
lectured
sense.
to about the right-wing fantasies of degenerates. Sort yourselves out. And then Scrump replies, "V is a furry, Dev is publicly thirsting for traps, and you campaigned in an election with Milo."
That's a nice shot, by the way. I'm not even gonna lie.
I mean,
that is a
I'm-
great comeback.
I mean...
Just from a 1-2 return, that is an excellent punch.
Dr.
Like-
Lindsay thinks distributism is the big fear from the right, not monarchy. I mean, I'm not kind of surprised by that, but...
Basically, just something I've known. He was a lot of people's kind of champion against the anti-woke from the conservative side.
We've
then
done several streams where we've gone over stuff that... And I consider myself friendly with Dr. Lindsay.
Yes,
I'm not mad that he told me he doesn't give a fuck what I think. I mean, that's
Yes,
based, fine.
But
But-
when it was revealed that he's basically just a 90s lefty. Like he still wants gay rights, he still wants people like he still wants, this is where, from what I can tell, people on the right lose the lukewarm agreement when it comes to the attack on the left, which is basically they think we can have civil liberties for things outside the tradition. And if you look at the sort of satanic panic till now, people are going, no, there's a slippery slope and you have no way of culling the slope. And
Yeah,
that is what makes people,
well-
that's where people shut off, is when they say, like, you want to have gay rights and gay marriage, and it's like, no, those things are a consequence of progressivism. You like progressivism, you just want it to stop, but you have no idea how to cull that trajectory. And that is where people go, no, you can't have this, because you do not know how to stop that force, and we want to stop it at the source. So it's basically just like, no, we're the absolute right, and you're just slightly against that. And the reality of the situation is, you can either be absolute right, or outside of this is some version of leftism. Like that is just the stone cold reality. You can either be
Mhm.
stone traditionalist and take this is like you may not cross this barrier, because anything outside of that is a flavor of leftism, and that's where you have to make your hard line. Is you can either
Yeah.
be a stone traditionalist or you can't. There is no fucking middle ground. That's it.
Dragon Lord Peter, what does distributism mean? It's essentially a third form of economic theory that exists outside of capitalism and communism, which is that the problem with distributist. You should ask Dave. He'd be the best one to ask, right? But to explain it as succinctly and simply as I can, is that okay? So with capitalism, there is a very small group of people who tend to consolidate a lot of wealth, and then with communism, and there's little regulation of the economy comparatively, which allows monopolies to happen. Now, it doesn't always happen in capitalism, but it can happen in capitalism. And then the problem
It's
with
more fueled by
communism is that you have the concentration of power
in the
again in a
state.
small group of people who also control the economy and allow themselves to control it. But with distributism, it's regulation of the economy and maximization of private capital that's distributed more equally across people rather than being
by
consolidated.
a benevolent tyrant or oligarchy.
Or monarchy, that
By
could
the
be
way,
a way of doing
speaking of
it.
that, did you see some jackass said to me recently
It's
that
why we get
that-
along with distributists often.
Yeah.
So
By the way, did you? I might actually be on a show with him soon.
I meant distributists as broadly speaking, people who believe in distributism. But yes, Dave the distributist.
Yeah,
That'd be
but,
awesome.
yeah,
We'd love to have him on sometime.
Lev told
Or
me to go
you
on,
go on his show.
to go on with him at some point.
He's very cool. I agree with him a lot.
Yeah.
Anywho, so back to this. V is a furry, Dev's probably searching for traps. You campaigned in an election with Milo. Carl responds, and you have sex with men who pretend to be women. The difference is you virtue signal online about your extreme right-wing fantasies. Evelyn
How
responds,
does he do that?
Right, and also extreme right-wing fantasies. Return to King. I don't know. Is
how
that
that is
extreme?
extreme right. That's
I
basically
mean,
like basic reactionary thought.
it is extreme right, but it's
You
not.
read a Vola saga, and how the hell are you gonna call him extreme? Like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
Pot kettle and that much.
Evelyn responds, intricate analysis of power dynamics does not give much scope for virtue signaling.
True, absolutely true.
Yes. And Carl responds, everything you say is a virtue signal to cover for your vices, and you know it.
That's the
what I
dumbest
wanted to
thing.
say
That's
about this
like
is that
one of the stupidest things he said.
This purity spiraling is bad. All of us are guilty of some shit because we live in the modern degenerate society. You know what I mean? Pretty much everyone has done something degenerate. It's like the alcohol thing too, right? Like I'm an alcoholic and I can tell people that you shouldn't drink alcohol. I'm a little bit too late for me in terms of like it's gonna be really, if I decide to quit at some point, which I need
You
to.
should stop
obviously.
drinking beer because beer is bad for you. And let me take a sip of beer.
I don't like beer, but occasionally, every once in a while, I'll be in the mood for a cerveza with a lime. Yes, in the summer in particular, very nice. Mexican style.
Drinking German beer.
Mexican style beer. No. Mexican style beer for me. German beer.
German beer is strong.
Yes, I don't like it.
I like strong things. So my whiskey is 50%.
I like being strong. Sorry, it's a meme. I can't even show them. Can I even show the I like being strong meme? I'm because you said it, more or less.
Alcohol is bad for birds.
If I can find this, it's from Homestuck. Oh wait, it's not from Homestuck. It's just from Hussey. Hussey made it. It's from the TNG edits. Oh shoot. I can't play it because I'll get copyrighted.
Yeah, I lost like 3 streams have been copyrighted for something.
What it is that it's from one of
Which
the.
I blame you because you're the one who controls the stream.
Probably. It's from one of the J. Andrew edits, TNG edits, where J. Andrew edits is the name of the channel on YouTube if you want to watch it. I can't play it because every time I've tried to play a clip from it, it always gets claimed. Where he just like messes with Star Trek The Next Generation. And there's one where Data is making all these paintings, and it's just like really horrible, like horribly done, disgusting, furry horse dick stuff. I mean, it's on YouTube, so it's all been blurred out. But there's one where it's just like a big, strong horseman, and he's like flexing, and it says, "I like being strong." And Picard looks at it and faints. It's like Data's paint. Oh no, it's Worf who looks at it and faints. It's Data's painting is making me dizzy. It's so funny.
Everything was better 10 years ago. Yes, including women.
But that's the thing, is that that's a perpetual cycle. It never ends. Everything was always better 10 years ago. Anywho, that's that Twitter thread. Let me.
I can't say much concerning some of the girls that I've liked, so I can't say shit. I feel like you're judging me for that comment. Did Aydin press the microphone? Did Aydin just leave the call? Aydin, did you just like literally just duck out the call? I think Aydin disconnected. Yeah, she did. Oh god. Hold on, I have to get Aydin back. I don't know what she just did. Did you just disconnect? Why is my mouse moving? I'm typing something. What the hell? That was weird. Aydin is currently experiencing technical difficulty. Yes, she's having a woman moment.
I'm retarded. I tried to end the sharing my screen.
You ended the call.
And I ended the call. Okay, hello, I'm back. So let me. All right, Guardian Dark Angel for 5 says, this is like when Billboard Chris went after Buck Angel because Buck stands against modern trans politics, but he is trans and therefore bad. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's
you have to be to really know how bad something is. I think you have to have lived it to a certain degree. Like if you want to know like how bad alcoholism is, how bad drug abuse is, and I think it. And I just think I know for a fact, that a lot of people are going to come out and become detransitioners, and their stories are going to be the most important ones, and they are already, and they are harrowing. Oh shoot, what's his name? Friend of the channel, who does all those interviews with the detransitioners.
I have no idea.
Been on his podcast. Story. I'll find it real quick because he's done so many of them.
Ollie?
No.
Shoot. Oh, Benjamin Boyce.
Benjamin Boyce, thank you. Yeah, goddamn. Benjamin Boyce has done so much like amazing work getting those people's stories out there. I guarantee
you. On his show once.
You should. I've been on Benjamin's show before. He's a great interviewer. He's just very good at
he was really good at keeping Moldbug on track.
Mm-hmm.
Like he did 2 interviews with Moldbug on Power, and they were both exceptional pieces of work.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes, he does great stuff.
I
mean, but like that
he did
stuff,
one review as well.
Yeah, we did a
yes.
We talked about Monarchy. Yeah, I think
I quite funny because when he said right-wing reactionary thought, and you just went, "Well, you're in my wheelhouse."
Right.
And his reaction was like, "Okay,"
like, and I was like, "Yeah, right-wing neo-reactionary." Yeah, I don't know what people think that phrase is just scary. I think that they use it.
It's because like, neo anything tends to people. I think because people hear neo, they hear neocon or neoliberal, and they go, "Oh God, those things are bad."
Or so neo-Nazi, right? So they hear neo and they think that it means bad. No, neo-reactionary.
If people say neo-Nazi, they think of freaking American History X. Like, let's be honest.
That's what I always think of as American History X. But
yeah, and I basically look like Edward Norton in that fucking film.
You do.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Deadpool Kid for 5 says, although transgenderism and queer theory is a new political movement, the dysphoria is ancient and pagan from Hindus to Canaanites. Yeah, it's like what we need to be doing is finding some way to treat this. It's dysphoria, meaning it's the opposite of euphoria. It causes psychological torment. I would rather find a way to make people not feel that way. However you'd best do that. I mean, that's the Hippocratic Oath is to try and help people, not to change the world to make their false beliefs, their delusions, because they are delusions, but they're what they are. And I'm not saying that to be mean. Most of them know this. But it's a delusion that it's just like any other psychological disorder. People, end their lives for all kinds of reasons that don't make actual sense. Right. They can be functional. They don't have to be degenerates, and to the extent that they go in and try to make kids trans so that they have more of them or something. I don't know. Oof, that shit's so weird. I just think that was a weird conversation.
Yes.
Gary Thomas for 5 says, Gary Thomas for 5 says, I like Carl, but he does have a tendency to get lost in the metaphysics of a problem to the point he forgets what the problem is. Yeah, I think he got, he just got lost in that conversation where it was like spiraling into just, well, you and Evelyn are degenerates, you know?
Yeah, and I'm like, this is not helpful. And in all honesty, Sargon, it made you look kind of silly. Because
Yeah.
I sent it to a bunch of people and I went, "What's your take on this?" And every one of them went, "What the fuck is Sargon doing?"
I don't know.
Every
Yeah,
one of them said it's going over his head. It was
pull the watch together back up, by the way, when you get a chance.
will do.
But yeah, I think it did go over his head because they clearly explained what their issue was. Is that like just pointing this out and making fun of it, which is fine,
Yeah,
but
but it only goes so far.
it only goes so far. Yeah.
Yes, and I don't see why that's controversial. I mean, like,
No, I don't know. I
isn't
don't
that
get it.
common
I
sense?
just think it was just a weird Twitter moment, if I'm being honest, where people were just talking past each other because that's what Twitter does. Uh, there was a very interesting interview or talk between Michael Malice and Count Dankula the other day over
Oh
on
my
Michael
god, that is
Malice's channel.
so
It's
funny.
hilarious.
That
It was
by the way,
it was hilarious.
I
Yeah.
want to address him that he said that because even Michael Malice said, "Is it just me or is everyone on Twitter getting stupider?"
Mhm.
And he
That's
said
why I
something
brought it up.
interesting. Yeah, and he said it's because there's a new generation who are getting access to the internet. And I
I mean,
never even
that's
thought about that. Like, oh
it's
god.
certainly part of it. It's certainly part of it in that you have no idea if the person
I
who
have
is
noticed there's a lot of really stupid people lately on Twitter. Like more than
well,
usual.
I think part of it is because the nature of Twitter is not good for a million reasons. It's low media richness because it's text,
Yes.
okay? Low media richness that always leaves out nuance
Yes.
from
And
vocalizations.
the limitation makes it combative.
And yes, there's no more text limits if you pay for it, but people still tweet the same way they always have for the most part.
Yeah, true.
Like if people are making big threads, yeah, they'll write an essay or whatever. But for the most part, I find that, and I'd like to actually see data on this. How many tweets, including tweets from people who have Twitter or X, whatever, the X plus, I don't know what it's called anymore, Twitter Blue. How many of them actually use the extended text feature? Or does everyone still write something like under 140 characters? Because I bet it probably, or they upgraded to 280, didn't they? Yeah, a long time ago. So how many people still keep their tweets in those tiny little formats just because we've been trained to do it? And that is the format of Twitter. It's not good for every single, there's tons of research on this. Twitter is not good for conversations because of its format. It's just bad for it.
I
So
could try doing that actually. I could try buying
people
Twitter
on,
and like uploading my videos to Twitter.
yeah, people are doing that.
Mm.
In terms of why
Oh, what's
is
up, Emerson?
everyone seems stupider on Twitter, I think that I don't think it's Twitter's fault inherently. I think it's social media because everybody is so
Yeah.
internet brained that it has to be constant,
Sounds
always
like
some
dopamine,
new content every 5 seconds, and it is affecting young people
way more.
in a way that we probably can't figure out yet. Because I've seen those videos of those kids, and they've got the Subway Surfers on the phone or on the tablet, and then they're scrolling through TikTok on the other another device at the same time, and it's like no ability. I mean, no ability to pay attention to anything. So to even like to have to read somebody's tweet and actually think about this is another real human being. What do they mean? What are they trying to communicate? And as a communication scholar, that is my field, by the way. I'm not a psychologist. I am a media psychologist, technically, but whatever the hell that means. I'm a communication person. My degrees are all in communication. When I see such a failure to communicate like that, it's frustrating. Like that happened in that thread. It's just clearly people talking just right past each other, you know? Anyway. Kiza, who's been a member for 12 months, says, guys, Evelyn / Blair are part of the problem. This
No,
dogma needs to be
disagree.
purged from society, and all people associated with it need to be made an example of.
No,
Stop
that's
calling the
no, that's
postmodern order a liberal order, please.
no.
It is a
That
liberal order, though.
no, but
Part of it is.
I disagree with that because if you that's like saying we need to purge the gays because they exist. You sound like
Right.
Islam.
I don't agree at all. With
Yeah,
that,
you
Kiza.
sound more like an Islamist than you do an Englishman. And
I
I'm
don't agree
hoping,
with that
and
at
I'm
all.
hoping Kiza right now is seething at that accusation because it's supposed
Well-
to. It's supposed to sting because you actually do.
That's
True.
Yeah. I just don't. I don't agree. I don't agree, Kiza.
Yes.
Uh,
It's true though.
sorry, man. I do not agree with that at all.
Yeah.
But you know, I had to
I
kill your
don't mind
communication in
those.
the stream. I did.
I don't mind those people existing. What I have a problem with it is when it spills into
Wait, so you shouldn't bother
um
anybody. I don't care.
yes, well, I don't like it being a political currency because that's when
Right.
people that's not very Hitler-like.
As long as you're not bothering anyone or doing it in public or pushing it on other people, I
People don't give
don't
a
really
shit.
care. I
Yeah.
really, I mean, again, I'm a libertarian at the end of the day, so I don't give a shit. As long as you're not, people have always been weird. They will always be weird. Like you
Yeah.
can't unweird the human brain. It's always gonna be something that makes
Frederick
people
the Great
be
of Prussia
weird.
was gay,
Yeah,
and he
you
was like
can't
one of the best leaders of Prussia ever.
you can't unweird the human condition. Now, you can put social pressures in place, which I think are apropos. Christianity, for example, which shouldn't like be a dominant force, but things that you shame people for this if they do it in public. Shame people if they try to show this stuff off. That's fine. You shame people. Shame is like such a powerful tool. We need to bring back shaming and bring back a little bit of bullying. Saying that as someone who was bullied very badly as a kid. Okay. That's I think so much of the problem is there's no shaming, there's no bullying that are social measures, not legalistic
It
ones.
also makes
Because when you,
people
the second you
bored.
put things in the hand of the state, in any way, the state will abuse and try to gain more power every single time without fail. This is
Especially in
it's actually a
democracy.
good segue to go back to Kuehnelt-Leddihn here talking about the difference between liberty and democracy. You can have a very illiberal democracy where things can be enforced horrifically, but people vote for that enforcement of tyrannical positions, tyrannical
That's
policies.
one of my favorite super chats ever, the one that just came up.
Which is EHF for 5 says Aydin has a degree in communication. Hey, I have 2 degrees in communication and half a PhD, and it's even worse, and still can't tell us what she wants for dinner.
That's it. Like I want to
I'm gonna
hear.
have a turkey
Tell
sandwich.
that to Bill right now. I want to hear his response.
I think he's out, but I think I'm gonna have a turkey sandwich actually. Well, he tried to tell me what he had. He said he's got turkey ham. I'm like, what the hell is turkey ham?
I think it just means a cut.
He said it was a type of it's turkey that's prepared like ham.
There you
And I was
go.
like, "Does it taste like turkey or does it taste like ham?" He says it tastes like turkey. I'm like, "Okay, well, I
Obviously
might eat
turkey
that then."
because like it's made like ham, but it's still turkey.
How odd. Guardian Dark Angel had just become a member. Thank you. Welcome to Squire. Minnesota Fats for 10 says, "Got a question, boss. Got a question, boss. Are government bureaucracies inevitable?
No.
I don't think that they are inevitable. It is so easy though to slip into it. But that's why if you have a very good monarch, and the problem is that sometimes the monarch will not be great because reality, human beings. But if you have a really good one afterwards, they can clean it out, right? I can't think of a king who personally commanded the army and wrote all the laws himself. Yes, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
you need an elitist aristocratic class.
yes.
That is just that's the part and parcel of every society. Every society has the elites.
Yeah. Yeah. A conversation in a book I'm reading broached it. Yeah, you do. That's why you do generally have a sort of elite class who are the king's confidants. Erik von Kuehnelt-Leddihn, I got to get used to it.
Yeah.
Pronouncing it correctly, laid all this out actually in his proposal for a monarchy that integrated systems of democracy. And part of that was the King's Council. That's people from the clergy, in his opinion. And I used to be like more against that. Now I'm more in favor of. Well, it's just like what clergy, what religion is it? Catholic? Not going great with the Catholics right now. As someone who considers who mostly goes along with Catholics, I still not been able to figure it out if I'm a Catholic or an Orthodox. I know that's not.
Guardian.
Hmm?
No, I'm just looking at what Guardian said to me, Spoon, just to clarify, a Persian like Hitler, like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was because come on, dude. Deadpool Kid for 5 says the first rule for establishing a new monarchy, we need to install the Habsburg rule. No blue-blooded purebreds. The problem that happened there is that monarchies intermarry for the reasons that you have.
Yeah,
it forms alliances. It keeps the peace, and it's a very good way of keeping the peace. I mean, I know people say, "Oh, wars between monarchies were forever." Yeah, but if you look at the vast length of time throughout human history, monarchies have existed, and the amount of devastating wars. Now, a lot of that is because of.
I feel like anyone who says that, especially if they're American, I kind of want to look at your civilization right now and go, "You gotta be fucking kidding me."
Yeah.
Don't tell me about any wars overseas when you look at your fucking military installations all over the bloody world. You gotta be fucking kidding me. You're taking the piss.
Yeah.
I don't
And
want to hear
thank
from
you.
any American tell me about anything to do with war. Like, get the fuck out. Your
Right,
foreign
right.
policy and CIA is
We've
insane.
been at war pretty much constantly.
Yes.
Or just shitting on some other country. Guardian Dark Angel, thank you for the 2. Spoon already read that. And Kizza for £5 says Spoon, considering Islamists are all supporters of doing illegal things to children, they'd all also be made victims of this purge in question. It's just not. It's not going to happen, Kizza. Like, I mean, it's like you're never going to get rid of all degeneracy in people. Like I said, what we should
You're not going to turn society into
the
a monk.
goal the goal
Into a monastery,
should be to
sorry.
try and make it not public, not promoted, but ostracized.
Yeah.
That should be the goal. So here, like I said, same thing with that conversation with Sargon. You have to propose what to do. Saying just kill everybody.
Shame. It's kind of bloodthirsty, yes.
That's not a
It sounds
reasonable
like something
solution.
Bronze Age pervert would actually say.
Yeah, just shame him. Anyway, that's good. We've been on a tangent with that. Let's get back to Dr. Kuehnelt-Leddihn.
Done today, you see, with the democratic principles, because the idea is the people who are elected, they identify themselves with the citizenry, and they say, you, that's us, and us, that's you, and you voted us in this position, and we do not stand on thin ice as the monarchs of old. Now, if you look at the back...
That's an interesting distinction, what he just said there.
Yeah. We don't stand on thin ice because we are you.
Yes.
You are us. And so if you go against us, you're going against yourself.
Which is
but
quite
you don't
weird
have
because,
that thin ice position of the monarch.
In the modern world, we think this is the opposite way around. We think the politicians are standing on thin ice and the monarchs had absolute rule. And in reality, like, no, the monarchs were actually standing on thin ice, and people in democracy just have like, well, I can do whatever I want. I can loot the place dry because in 4 years' time, I'll be somebody else's problem.
Yeah. French Ferret, we found him, I'm sorry, that was Crusade when, Jake the Just asked, where did we find this guy? Mises Institute.
I found him because one of Molbug's articles...
Molbug.
Yes, he said that there's 2 prominent voices that are... I'll probably read the video or read the article that I found.
It's on qualified reservations, isn't it?
Yes.
No.
No, it was on qualified reservation. It was one of the articles where he goes into sort of his perspective on. One of them was on divine right monarchy for the secular age, and one of them was where he mentioned what is the difference between dictatorships and monarchies. And essentially, the difference between a dictatorship and a monarchy is monarchies rule through legitimacy and despots rule through strength. Yeah. And in the latter sense, the fish rots from the neck down, like a mafia family, because they have to make informal coalitions with absolutely everything inside. Whereas monarchies don't do that because it is accepted by the people that the king is the legitimate ruler of the land. Yeah.
Frog Jupiter for 5 asked us, since you're a monarchist, what do you think of sheriffs who are elected versus a police chief who is appointed? If we follow Leddin's model, which I'm in favor of, which is a constitutional monarchy, although Spoon has often sold me, and I go back and forth on whether or not absolute is better. I think even in an absolute monarchy, and this is in a lot of Leddin's arguments, that at the low level, people organize themselves. So there's nothing about a monarchy that prevents local voting for something like the position of sheriff, right? Yes. That would be fine. It's about who controls the country overall.
There's an interesting discussion to do. When you hear the phrase absolute monarch, what does that mean to you?
In terms of what do you mean, or what do I think the average person means, or what do I think it means?
Like, if you say to someone an absolute monarch, what do they think that means?
The average person is going to tell you a dictator.
Yes, but in a sense, absolute really means complete. Yeah. And that's a very different distinction.
It would mean that the monarch's power is not being held potentially... It's entirely his decision on everything, and there's no council or anything that can override him.
Yeah, and when people, there's a book called Absolute Monarchism in Absolute Monarchism in Europe, something like a very basic title like that.
Oh,
And
it's a if it's that history book I'm thinking of.
yeah, it deals with like 16. It deals with the monarchical language of 16th and 17th century Europe because
Yes. Yeah, I'll find it in a second
obviously
here.
times word and language changes through times, which is what people don't seem to fucking understand. Which is why you need to read older shit because obviously different times. You know the Robert Filmer types and Jean Dumas. These places in the world.
Monarchism's in the Age of Enlightenment. That's it, right?
No. This is a different one.
Okay.
Give me 2 seconds. Let me just look here.
I have a fun time getting that book, guys. If you're interested in it, it is available online.
It's like 80 quid.
It's almost impossible to get a physical copy, and yeah, it's like 70. It says 73 quid for a physical copy of it. You can get it online though. It's more of a textbook, but it's very good.
Oh, it says monarchism and absolutism in early modern Europe. This is not.
Yeah.
Let me just see it. This is. It's 312, so it's probably like 300 pages. It's not terribly long, but it deals with so I'll give some examples. Like here's some of the chapters in the book. Let me just pull this up here. So culture, political council, the case of the 14th century England, royal absolutism in the 1650s, patriarchalism and the monarchical republicans, cynic kingships and German Enlightenment, polity and patriotism, Joseph von Sonnenfels and the legitimacy of the king. Basically, that's the kind of thing of enlightened monarchy in the case of 18th century state sciences, absolutism, patriotism, and publicity in Denmark, Norway, and the enlightened century. So basically, how does absolutism translate into the different countries? Because, shocker, absolutism in the European sense doesn't actually exist. It's a term defined by region and reign.
Right. And how much power it's ever.
Yes.
How much that's. The idea of a true, pure, absolute monarchy is pretty rare.
Yeah. And so you really need to study. You really need to study on a country by country basis because the same way that we have democracy. And democracy in France.
There will always be advisors. There will always be influences.
Yeah, but the way that
I
the
like
system is
Leddin's
set up
system
in one country is not the way
because
that
it's
it's
got
set
checks
up
and
in
balances.
different ones.
But yeah, true.
Like if you look at England, like England hasn't had an absolute monarch since like Charles II.
Yep. Yeah.
And then the dissolution of the House of Stuarts. Like England hasn't been like an actual monarchy for like 400 years. Like a legitimate monarch is really steering the ship in a sense since that time. And France had it with King Louis. The German had it with like the Kaiser and Prussia. So as far as I can tell, the times of like real despotic rule, not in the tyrannical sense, but just
a despotic, not just despot comes with a negative connotation.
Yes,
but you mean despotic in terms of
one man rules.
One man rules.
Yes, is not really all that prevalent. And in the way that we've been coached in democracy, or rather propagandized, is to think that sort of your fail-safes are what allows you power in the regime, which is really not true. The fail-safes are to keep the people from being cold while the regime basically facilitates the next round of people who can loot the ship while they pay them off and people get their severance packages and basically the oligarchy just moves the apparatus behind the scenes because they're the one really pulling the strings and you are focusing on the people that are puppeteering, not the ones that are pulling the strings.
Exactly. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Oh, okay. Let's get Jesus. All right, let's get back into this. I thought you were rambling a little bit more. I was like,
yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. Eat some crackers.
Now, the development of democracy in Europe. Bear in mind that democracy is a very primitive form of government.
Interesting.
I've made studies of the Bambutis in Rwanda, Urundi, pygmies, who have a completely democratic society. And then, of course, on a sophisticated level, you see in Europe the rise of democracy in Greece, originally called isonomia, equality of law, and the first great victim and the discrediting of that Greek democracy happens through the assassination of Socrates. Socrates was forced to commit suicide. He was condemned to death, as you know, Why? Because he corrupted the youth. What did it mean? He ridiculed democracy. He quoted Homer, ukagaton, polykoirane, and so forth. If you don't believe me, read it up in the Encyclopedia Britannica. That was the real reason. You don't get it in the average school textbook. Now you see...
This man is a walking encyclopedia.
Yes, he
It's
really...
just, like, insane.
You understand why in my tweet and what I said, how I described this stream.
It's about, like, obscure knowledge you can pull out of
one
nowhere.
of the most... like, he can just pull it. Don't believe me? Look it up. In 1968 said, don't believe me? Google it. Holy shit.
Basically, yeah, that's like their time version of that. I can you imagine
God
this man
damn.
and Mulberg having a conversation.
Oh my god.
I
Oh,
feel
you
like
know,
I'd
you
be
can
like
do
a
that.
5-year-old just sitting
You
there
know
going like...
I know. You know that AI bot that they have that gets isn't it Alexander Dugan and I can't remember who else to just talk to each other forever? Have you seen this?
You
There's
want to
an
get Curtis Yao and this man to talk.
I would love to develop an AI bot that gets Curtis Yarvin and Erik von Kuehnelt-Leddihn to talk, and it's called, I think, Infinite Conversation, the AI, and I think it's Dugan, isn't it? I don't remember who the other interlocutor is, but yeah, if I look it up, hang on, let's see. I think it's called like, whoop, wrong thing. What does it matter? Share my screen. I think it's called Infinite Conversation.
Can I play the video?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh,
Looking
it's
from
not,
the
it's not, hang on, sorry. It's not, it's an infinite conversation between Werner Herzog and Slavoj Žižek, and it's crazy to hear that. I'd love to have an infinite conversation between Erik von Kuehnelt-Leddihn and Mulberg, but yeah, go ahead, sorry.
From the Acropolis and looking down to the Areopag, you see very clearly the place democracy had the first time morally founded. And therefore, do not be surprised that not so much later, you find Socrates, who has nothing to do with the famous Socrates, who implored the fate to send to Greece again a monarch, to start a monarchical age. Now, for many centuries, democracy, except in very primitive areas, in the Alps, in the Tyrol, where I come from, after all, in neighboring Switzerland, in certain city-states, in certain peasant communities, democracy is absent, and just like a U-boat, like a submarine surfacing, democracy comes back again to our countries with the French Revolution, in a forest of guillotines. And you see at that time, of course, enticed by pictures, by the magic picture of the United Kingdom, whose great propagator was Voltaire. And then, of course, thanks to the influence of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, in other words, the Swiss example. And then finally, the American example in the most tragic fashion, because as you all know, the founding fathers were violently opposed to democracy. And nevertheless, the idea is, and you have unfortunately a man like Lafayette, so many people thoroughly and basically misunderstanding, not the American Revolution, there was no revolution, the American War of Independence and these ideals, and transplanting them finally to France. Because the American Republic was an aristocratic republic, inspired the aristocracy of all of Europe. They were coming en masse to the United States. You just have to go to Washington, D.C., and see there in front of the White House on Jackson Square, in the center, the monument of Old Hickory, and in the four corners, the monuments of these four European noblemen who have come to this country to fight for liberty, but not for democracy. Tadeusz Kościuszko, Baron von Steuben, the Comte de Rochambeau, the Marquis de Lafayette. Now you see, democracy comes into the European scene as a sort of very curious ideal. The idea is that original sin can be unmade, the coercive power of the state.
What?
It can't.
No, exactly, it can't. Oh, this is fascinating, though.
State is going to vanish. We no longer are being ruled. We rule ourselves. But as, of course, you know very well indeed, on April the 15th, if you make out the income tax declaration, you are not really ruling to self. This is majority rule in the...
Let's go. Yep, if you pay income tax, you're not ruling yourself. You are being ruled, are you not? You're always being ruled. That's the thing. That's the biggest lie, is that democracy means we are ruling ourselves. No, you're not. You never are. You are always ruled. The difference is, who do you want to rule you? Someone who is going to be held accountable long term, or somebody who can leave and make off with a bag?
Representatives, and we cannot escape, you see, the curses of original sin, just as the idea taking off your clothes and then you become innocent as in paradise. Nudism in their form is really an analogy to democracy. And then you get finally the American intervention. Because
wait, I want to go back to that. I'm going to go back just to re-listen to that one sec.
The coercive power of the state is going to vanish. We no longer are being ruled. We rule ourselves. But as, of course, you know very well indeed, on April the 15th, if you make out the income tax declaration, you are not really ruling to self. This is majority rule in the representatives, and we cannot escape, you see, the curses of original sin, just as the idea taking off your clothes and then you become innocent as in paradise. Nudism in their form is really an analogy to democracy.
Whoa, that's interesting. Nudism, I was thinking the taking off of clothes. So do you know what mea culpa means? I'm sorry, right? That's what I was thinking of, just came to mind instantaneously. Mea culpa, to say I'm sorry, is actually a shedding of the clothes. So that's an interesting sort of analogy there. Is that everything's supposed to be made bare, I guess, right? It's all a mea culpa. But the thing is that there's no way that you're going to receive back what you think you're giving. You're divesting yourself actually of power in that, while thinking that you still have power, which is, like I said, I've said many times before, the most insidious aspect of democracy. It's divesting people of power, while at the same time, and creating an in-group, out-group mentality, or that always exists, but exacerbating in-group versus out-group mentalities, and then telling people that this is what makes them free. It's insidious.
And then you get finally the American intervention, because unfortunately the United States gets through amendments more and more democratized. And you have the great tragedies of 1918, 1919. In other words, a war won for democracy, ending in a defeat of liberty. And again in 1945, a war won for democracy and another defeat of liberty. The result of number one is the rise of Lenin, of Hitler, of Mussolini. The result, of course, of number two, finally, is the overpowering strength of the Soviet Union and the emergence of Chinese communism.
Let's really put what you just said there. People really need to get this shit straight. Right? What ended in World War I was largely the European monarchies. What has happened since the end of the European monarchies? The rise of every major totalitarian, serious totalitarian regime. Ones that have done so much destruction to human life that it's, if you put it in the broad span of human history, is incalculable. And it's both directions, if you want to put it on a political compass, although that's not really useful. Communism and fascism. That's what came out, which both come out of what? Claims of democracy, essentially. Spoon, are you there? Mm-hmm. Did he die?
No, I'm here.
Oh, he's drunk. Spoon, wake up. Eat some crackers.
I'm here.
All right.
In other words, the enormous American deception. And Lasky was very right in pointing out, and here we come now to the reason of the difficulties of democracy in Europe, that unless two premises are being met, and that is the two-party system on one side, and on the other side, a common framework of reference, a public philosophy, where people are mere ins and outs. Unless you meet these two conditions, you cannot have a stable democratic government. And Europe, of course, is ideologically utterly divided at the present moment, or until recently, to be more precise, it was not so evident. This new tremendous European prosperity had hidden the fact that these ideological forces are still alive. They are now breaking out again. People got used to that prosperity. People are again starting to think. The ideological uniformity of Europe is breaking up, and maybe so is yours. This is a momentous development now in our entire Western history. Because don't forget Democracy is only a frame. It's only a frame. It is not a picture. If now, for instance, let us say, for instance, 51% of any country votes a Nazi ticket or votes a communist ticket, then that country is becoming communist or Nazi democratically.
Yep.
I'm using here the adverb of the form. Situations which were strange to you in the past, and I hope they'll be spared to you in the future. Visiting a hard-hitting Catholic newspaper.
Something I want to say about Kuehnelt-Leddihn. He despised, if it's not very clear, both the fascists and the communists. He's like an libertarian, right? This man is concerned with preserving liberty, and how he came to the monarchist conclusion was, how do you best preserve liberty? Because democracy, and he watched this happen in his lifetime, led to the rise of both the fascists in Nazi Germany and the communists in the USSR. Both came out of presumed or alleged democratic leadership. Now, people I know will say, well, Hitler wasn't really democratically elected. That was bullshit. The communists weren't really elected into power. But they if you're talking about rule by majority, how did they get into power? It is always reframing things. It always has to be that democracy has to get off. It has to be excused that it wasn't democracy that led to this. But if you go back to Aristotle, he called it 2,000 fucking years ago. Democracy leads to totalitarian governments every single time. It is just, the only thing is, when does it happen? Not will it happen, if it may happen. No, it will. But when and how? When and how, not if. Aristotle called it, Kuehnelt-Leddihn saw it happen in his lifetime twice.
Early in March 1948 in Rome. The name of the paper was Brancaleone. In Rome, on April the 18th, 1948, there was an election touch and go, because there was a real danger that the combined communist left socialist ticket might gain a majority. And walking into these editorial offices, I'm asking the young man and said, now do tell me, young man, none of them was above the age of 23 or 24. I said, now do tell me, for whom are you going to vote next month? And they say, we, next month, of course, De Gasperi, for the Democrazia Cristiana. I said, Democrazia Cristiana? Are you really Democrats? And the usual confusion between the democratic and the liberal principle. They say, yes, we are Democrats. And then I said, listen, boys, if you're Democrats, then you have to respect the verdict of the majority. So if the communists get 51%, will you say, as good Democrats, yes, amen, the nation hath spoken, and we bow to its verdict? And they said, well, of course not. And we take...
How prescient is that to today? Spoon. Wake up.
I'm here, go.
No, you're not. Wake up.
Go. Play.
How prescient is what he just said today?
Go.
Well, we're in a democracy, so will you accept if the other side wins? Of course not.
We'll go to the rooftops and shoot it out.
But it's the same thing. The left did it in 2016.
Yes.
The right did it in
They
2020.
still do it now.
I mean, they're still doing it now, because it never ends. Oh yes, the democracy doesn't work with the human psyche because people are built towards in-group preference.
Yes.
Always. That is the actual nature of the human psyche.
You said that on Benjamin Boyce's one. You said that democracy inherently creates animosity.
Yes.
Which is true, it does.
Because it does, because it's always in-group versus out-group. And we can't re-engineer human psychology. I know you sure would like to try to, but you can't. You can't do it. So it will always be, when the other person wins, must have been cheating. It happened in
was correct.
It's every election of my life that I can remember. Now I'm 33, okay? Every election of my life, every single one has had people who have claimed that it must have been rigged, must have been fake, because there's no way this guy could win. They're not going to accept it. It's never going to work.
With every election since.
But the
since
Republicans
Bush.
have too. They've been the Democrats have always, at least in my lifetime, have been always more aggressive about it.
A religious
And then-
monarch, by the way, Darth. If you're not
Our
ruled by if you don't have a ruler that is governed by the benevolence of God, you will inevitably
Right.
birth a tyrant that
So-
rules rules with the malevolence of man.
Leydin's contention here, and which I agree with, And what even though Scrump himself is not religious, but what we've talked about on this as well is that the human race, human species, is a hierarchical one.
Of course.
By
All mammals
nature.
are, actually.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, it's
everything
mammal-
is.
it's a
But
mammalian
all
thing.
things fall into hierarchies. But you have child, mother, father, inherent hierarchy.
Yes.
And I know that people don't like that women. What a horrible thing for feminists for me to say that women are below men. But yes, women
But they
are
are.
less physically strong. Women can't. We in harsh evolutionary conditions. Okay,
Women are bigger, stronger,
talking-
faster, smarter.
yes, we're talking in harsh. Well, women's IQ tends toward a very thin mean comparatively to men's, which is more broad. So there's a lot more very, very stupid men, and there's also more very, very intelligent men, such as Kuehnelt-Leddihn here. But women tend towards a closer IQ mean with a thinner standard deviation. That being said, but that's the hierarchy. That's the natural family hierarchy. There's also a hierarchy within that too, in terms of the grandparents who assist in that sort of. But the human species derives and orients itself around hierarchy. And so outside of father, so we have a child, mother, father. Above father is his liege, whoever who owns the land or controls the land. And that's not just because of some like horrible event that's caused one person to be more in power, which I mean they probably got historically, maybe through doing a bunch of dubious shit. But there's also a responsibility, just like father has a responsibility to his wife and to his
Family.
children. The liege has a responsibility to not harm the people his subjects that he's in charge of. Because you don't want, because they're providing you resources.
Yes, you don't want to exploit them to the point where like it's
provide
actually
you
culling them.
a benefit, just like wife provides her husband benefits, child provides the family, both his parents benefits in terms of both work, in terms of you can put your children to work in the future, but more specifically, that allows your genes to propagate. That's why we reproduce. Every single line down this hierarchy from top to bottom provides benefits to those beneath. And it's a protective status that does not exist in a democratic system because you can just walk away. And it's why when you have democratic systems, it manifests socially in a similar way. It divests women of responsibility, right? And divest men of responsibility. Well, I'm just going to get divorced. You're going to have to owe me money, but you're not going to see your son again. You're not going to see your daughter again.
It's very ugly.
Democracy manifests at every social level, whereas the monarchic system is the natural organizational state of humanity. Above the liege is his liege, and above him is the king, going up and up. It is the natural state because it is based on the family system. That's why it works. And why democracy does not, and why it ends up producing this shit of divesting of responsibilities.
Read Democracy, the God That Failed.
Yep. And Leddin's book, Liberty or Equality.
The reason now guns go up to the rooftops and shoot it out. But you see here,
even the audience is laughing.
A dilemma unknown to you, because never forget here the one thing, the fact which Plato has told us, book 9 of his Republic, ukek alles politeias tyrannis katistata eg demokratias, not from another form of government does tyranny arise, but out of democracy, because democracy gives the real frame.
Did this man just quote Latin? I could swear he did.
Oh, sorry. Bill was asking me something.
This man just quoted Latin.
Yeah, have you not? He's spoken he's already spoken in like 5 different languages in this speech in 10 minutes.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually learned Latin.
Probably, almost assuredly.
Yeah.
Must have been one of
to the demagogos, to the demagogue, to the people's leader, who humbly says, oh no, I am not a ruler, I'm only leading you along, I'm personifying you, I am not a father. Away with the father image. I'm a man, a fellow like you and me, I'm a square, I'm a brother. Big brother.
Terrifying.
You see, this is precisely the evolution, and it's for that reason that Metternich said during the French Revolution, when I, liberté, fraternité, égalité, said Metternich, if I see how the name brother is being used now in France, I'm very much inclined to call my own brother cousin. But here we come now to an important point, and this is the father point, the father image, which after all is deeply engraved in Europe and will remain engraved.
I've not listened to this, as you know, Spoon. I have read his book. I've read a lot of his writings. I'm sorry that I totally prefaced what he was about to go into. I set it all up directly.
As long as there are families in Europe, as long as the fathers are kings in the families. And if really you actually go now and look at the newspaper kiosk and look at these cheap weekly papers which we have in Europe, which you do not have in America, it's nothing like Look, and it's nothing like Time, it's nothing like Life. These cheap, very cheap papers written for the broad masses, what does really interest them? And the answer is nothing but the loves and the divorces, or the pending divorces, or the menacing divorces, and the marital misunderstandings, and the pregnancies, and the births, and the funerals of the members of the defunct European monarchies. It's Faradiba.
Has that changed?
No.
Someone said in the chat earlier that the British monarchy is basically a reality TV show at this point.
That is true.
1968.
To be fair, our freaking politics at this point is as well.
It all is, yeah. It's all. I mean, that's the reason. Again, I got into politics. Like, got really interested in it because, and it never ends. It's a reality TV show that never ends, and every day there's the new episode is crazier than the last one.
Except Trump was by far the best and biggest
Trump
star.
Was the best. Oh, he was, of course, because he was a real. He actually was a reality.
He was an
TV
actual
star.
real one, yeah.
So
I know how to make entertainment.
That's wow. Like, talk about predicting the future on that. I mean, or maybe not predicting the future. He was seeing this in 1968. Yeah. Jeez.
And it's Elizabeth and it's Prince Philip and on the whole line down to the Near East, because of course we already have a scarcity of that material. The father-mother image, the concept of the whole nation as a family is exceedingly strong. And do you know, some of you have read probably the San Francisco Chronicle on the 26th of this month. And there you find a report at the Bild Post in Germany and that Quick, two magazines conducted the Gallup poll discussing who should follow President Lübke, who made himself so ridiculous in Germany and who's now stepping down. And 40% of the readers, by far the largest block, Prince Louis Ferdinand of Prussia, the grandson of William II.
Let's go! Oh, let's go! Bring back Ferdinand.
We are now 50 years away from 1918. It doesn't really change because the European is cynical. He knows that he is not really voting the people into power, that he's only really very, very microscopic whether he stays at home and actually goes to the polls, that as a person, it would make no difference.
Yep.
But on the other side, there's also growing another cognition, and one again which is not only purely European, of purely European interest, but of a general interest, and that is the fact of the ever-widening gap between the scita and the scienda. That means between the things, between the knowledge of the man in the street. And when I say the man in the street, I don't mean the man who is semi-literate or illiterate. No, the man who really follows the radio, who has a high school education, who has a college education. And nevertheless, what he can really know and what he ought to know, the difference in order to rationally judge these events is so enormous and is getting constantly bigger and bigger, even if it were true.
Oh my God. And think about how much this has exacerbated in the growing media landscape. Like how much
I was thinking the same thing just now.
It's almost the opposite problem in a way, right? Is that in 1968, it would have been difficult. You'd have to read constantly, I guess, the newspapers. You have to pay very close attention, even if you are someone who thinks that you do. The amount of time and cognitive energy you would need to exert to know everything is impossible. And now it's like, yeah, you have all of this information at your fingertips, but there's so much that it's impossible to narrow it down into what is relevant, what's important, what should you know, because it's too much of it. And that's why is one common complaints that we have with democracy is that it requires people to know things that they cannot just
True.
by base route memorization. That much information is impossible. You can't. None of us can all be experts. We can be experts in certain things, but even an expert in any kind of field, they're limited. There's people in my field who know way more about different aspects of it than I do, obviously. So it's and democracy requires you to know everything about every single issue, every politician, and that's just not how it works. Not in the long run.
Indeed.
That general education increases the educational levels in an arithmetic progression. The things which ought to be known go up in a geometric progression. What does the average American know about Vietnam? What do the protesting students know about Vietnam? Absolutely nothing. They can only make an act of faith in the best Lutheran fashion in either this or in that commentator.
Exactly. And that's the same thing we see everywhere. It's that it's an act of faith. Look at the war in Ukraine, right? People who just they have or in Israel, Palestine. People are making acts of faith and they base it on their pre-existing ideological beliefs. They are using cognitive heuristics. If he uses that term, cognitive heuristic, because it did exist in this time, because that's what it is. You are using these kind of connections in your brain that already exist to make assumptions. You are not always taking in new information and processing it novelly. We are processing things very quickly, within a couple of seconds, if even, and then coming to conclusions and then putting that into the cognitive schema that exists. And it has to fit into the existing cognitive schema. If it does not fit into the existing cognitive schema, it will be rejected and forgot. That's how your brain works. If it doesn't, if it contradicts everything we know, almost always you're just going to be like, no, that's a lie, or that's misinformation. And by the way, the media has exacerbated that as well. If it doesn't agree with what you already think, you should abandon it because it must be Russian hacking misinformation. They've exacerbated all of that. This is fantastic, dude. Holy shit.
Average Englishman know, for instance, about Rhodesia. He knows nothing whatsoever.
Well, I know a little
Shut
song.
up, woman. I know you're gonna make a joke. I swear I knew as soon as you were like, Aydin's gonna make a joke. You can't help yourself.
What joke do you think I was gonna make?
You usually have something whenever that name is mentioned.
I was just saying, I was gonna do a little song from Rhodesians Never Die.
Mm-hmm.
Cause we're all Rhodesians and we'll fight through thick and thin. I can't remember the lyrics now. Now I can't remember the lyrics. Enemy coming in, we'll keep them north of the Zambezi till that river is running dry. I can't remember the lyrics. Because Rhodesians never die. Why don't you like that great Rhodesian song, Spoon? Your country's headed in the same direction.
So is yours.
You see, David Riesman has said sex is the last frontier.
We're all fucked, man.
And that is true in the emotional domain. But in the intellectual domain, it is religion and politics, politics and religion, where everybody can shout his mouth off. But the feeling is growing, we really know nothing about these affairs. And of course, that shakes the faith in democracy, which of course makes sense in the Tyrolean village where I live, or the canton Glarus with 38,000 people debating whether one should give a license to a chocolate factory or not. This is within the scope of the 7,000 sturdy Swiss men in the marketplace in Glarus. It's a wonderful picture. But the big man in the Mars state, what does he know? And does not this more and more invite the rule by experts, the cold-blooded rule by experts? And then the question comes, who is going to control the experts? What are we going to do if the experts, as it usually happens, contradict each other?
COVID.
Oh my God. That he called that. Yeah. The rule by experts. Then who's going to control the experts? Predicted COVID. Predicted the whole COVID nonsense. I mean, it's not the only case. It's not the whole, it's not the only thing, because it's become everywhere, right? Is that everything is that you need to trust the experts, not just in COVID. You need to trust the scientists. Are you a scientist? even if the answer is yes, oh, you're not the right type, or you don't have the right opinions.
I'm gonna say
As a
something
scientist.
controversial.
Okay.
I don't think meritocracy is good.
Okay. Explicate.
When you say meritocracy, what's
Let's explain what is meritocracy. What should it mean, and what does it mean in practice? Is that
yes,
what I think the differentiation?
when you say meritocracy, people think best person for the job. Yes.
Yes, that's what it should mean.
What's the job?
Depends on what the job is, right? But okay, if the job is being a scientist,
if your job is to push DEI, you're gonna have a whole bunch of morons. But this is the thing. When people don't explicate what they mean by best person for the job, because people think that, oh, the job is this sort of capitalistic gain kind of merit-based system, where what we can generate, how do we measure this person's capacity for merit base? Well, it's by how much capital they can generate. Well, what if that is not what if that is not your measurement system? Then your meritocracy system goes to shit. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. You need to go look no further than the new director for Star Wars. What's her name? Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy.
Oh, the Star Wars one.
Yeah, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy.
Ah, yes.
The
we like making men uncomfortable.
woman. Right, the Pakistani woman who has absolutely she directed 2 episodes of Miss Marvel, which apparently were completely recut because she had no idea how to direct a TV show. She has no history whatsoever or experience in directing fantasy, sci-fi films, let alone giant budget ones. She worked again on 2 episodes on Ms. Marvel, which apparently were recut because they were unwatchable. And this is that's the new definition of meritocracy. So it's who selects what's meritocratic.
Yeah, that's the problem.
In a democratic system, well, then meritocracy is selected like that. There you go. Selected by someone who has literally no experience whatsoever, just other than checking DEI checkboxes. There it is. Fantastic.
These are unsolved questions. These were questions more or less solved in the monarchies of old. But they appear like a golden age way back in the background.
I like the way that he speaks in a very way that's very whimsical and storytelling.
Yeah, you called him, said he was like a wizard. He very wizardly.
I can listen to him talk for hours just based on the way he talks.
It's great.
It's very.
A lot of people have said he sounds like V's great grandfather, and it's like, yeah, sort of.
Because the man in the street, if you ask him, does he believe in democracy? Of course he nods, he does. Does you believe in the Republican system? Most people do. But at the same time, of course, the word democracy is a complete weasel word. What we need is a democratic monarchy.
Yes, it is a weasel
Hitler
word.
had spoken about Nazism, eine deutsche Demokratie, and Mussolini una democrazia organizzata, and jenen demokratia po novomu, a democracy in a new style. So it's everywhere, and of course, therefore, nowhere. And now comes a new political, there's a little bit of the old nationalism.
The important part of that, I just want to say that's important there to really, I think, hit home on. It says it's everywhere and it's nowhere. That's because it's become meaningless. Yes, as he says, everybody uses this word democracy because it sounds good. People like it. Like, oh, I get to have a say. Yes, our democracy. I get to have a say over what happens to me directly. That's great. Except you don't. It's a farce. It's a fairy tale. That's why and when you hear people say words like our democracy, we have to protect democracy, they are saying we have to protect our oligarchy. You don't have a part in it no matter what. It is just to make you feel secure. That's all that word is.
The Democratic People's Republic of North Korea.
Exactly. I mean, that always gets brought up, and then I was the people who are big democracy simps will be like, "Oh, but that's an outlier. They don't count." No, they do. They're not the only ones. He just pointed out 2 other examples: Mussolini's Italy, Hitler's Germany.
The way that they can point out an outlier and they think it's legit, but when we point an outlier, ours is not. When we say like we want monarchies, and they just go, "Well, what about North Korea?" I'm like, "That is not a monarchy."
Not a monarchy. I mean, it is a autocracy.
Yeah, it's definitely
that's true. And monarchies are a form of autocracy, but not all autocracies are monarchies.
Yes.
So, good job. Good job.
Now coming up. There's coming up the new left. The new left is exceedingly interesting because in the new left, if you really study their books and works, the whole critique, what they...
My God, Mr. Leddihn, if you could see the state of the left now, fucking
When
hell.
did he pass away? Like 2001? He didn't. He did die after the new millennium.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure he lived to be quite
in the late
old.
90s?
Was it in the 90s? 1999. He almost made it, right? Yeah, almost.
Damn.
Yeah, damn. Yeah, he's 90 or 89 years old. Yeah, almost made it. Damn, though. Let's see where this goes. Tell us about the new left.
Called the establishment. I don't know how many of you gentlemen realize, and how many of these writing students realize, that 2/3 or 3/4 of their critique of the modern democratic liberal state is exactly the same critique as of the old European conservatives from the early 19th century, where they had foretold, they said, if you have a purely commercial civilization, the whole thing just won't do. It will end all in planning. It ends in rat races. It ends in a dull sort of materialism. Yes. It's all the prophecies of the old conservatives, which they are using without realizing that they do. Because
funny, right?
Maybe that even their ideological leaders don't realize that. And of course, in other words...
Of course they didn't.
That's fascinating.
I know, right? That is. They were using the same verbiage, same terminology. Because
List literally predicts this. Friedrich List
yes.
What's it like? It's like the national... hold on a second. Something like the national political... Hold on. One second. I have the book here. Oh, God damn it. I had the book here like 5 minutes ago. The National System of Political Economy.
Okay.
Which you know how Molbuk has this very weird design of like a corporate monarchy?
Yeah.
If you
read the king is the CEO, yeah.
Yes. If you read Friedrich List, if you can read his book, The Political Economy, that'll get you like 50% of the way there. Because like Molbuk is heavily influenced by German thought.
Yes. Yeah.
Very heavily. More than Anglo, I would say. If you ever wonder why he has this weird perspective of power, it's primarily French and German.
Yeah.
More German, I would say, but that's just my theory.
This thing...
Sure, press play.
This feeling, what they call in Germany, for instance, das Unbehagen in der Demokratie, this feeling of uneasiness, of emptiness, of dullness. It has no warmth. It's a fight for numbers.
Oh, God.
Now, mind you, this does not mean that I foretell you a return to monarchy now or in the foreseeable future. All this tiredness with politicians. Oh, I would say 100 years ago, if you said ein Politiker, a politician, oh, that was a fine thing. That was a sort of an intellectual and so on. But today it gets slowly the same flavor as in the United States. And the people distinguish very carefully between politicians and statesmen. And they said, Adenauer, that was not a politician. He was a statesman. And of course, as much as they...
Politician has for a very long time now had an extremely negative connotation in the United States, apparently. Because if you're a politician, that's a career, right?
Yes. I've never seen a statesman in my life.
I don't think I have either.
At least not in the American apparatus.
Oh, Ron Paul.
Okay, yeah, probably true.
Ron Paul. And I'll throw Rand in there too, but definitely Ron. Definitely Ron. He was a legitimate statesman. He cared. He was there. He had a career beforehand. And maybe you could throw Trump in as well, then, as being a statesman, because Trump is not a politician.
No.
By definition, he's not.
He's an entertainer.
Yeah.
And a competent executive.
Yeah. There you go. But that's an interesting observation there.
Like de Gaulle. And de Gaulle is by no means a popular man in France, but he's respected. He's respected. He's a sort of statesman. He doesn't really do very little politics. So a man like Franco, also not really popular at all, but nevertheless, grudging admission. People who have been very long on their jobs, who now really know the ropes, with really an age-old experience, who know the people around the country, and of course, really are going at least to some places, even in spite of failures, even in spite of the failure of de Gaulle's East European policy, even in spite, of course, of the inevitable failure of the French financial policy after the enormous damages done early here in this summer. But you do see here a real crisis. You do see the crisis of authority, which again you see is not a purely European problem. Because you see, authority is something else than power. The Russian government has an enormous amount of power. But authority really means that when you get an appeal or when you get a command, that there is in you already a certain willingness to concede it, to accede to it, to collaborate, you see, to cooperate. All this is authority, the parental authority. There must be, in authority, there must be a certain amount of love and affection mixed in, and the respect, the curious mixture of all sorts of sentiments. And this authority is collapsing in Europe. And of course, when authority collapses, then finally you see then in a tremendous amount of nakedness, then finally the harsh alternatives. If it isn't authority, it is going to be sheer power.
That is legitimately terrifying to me.
But it's how he's been proven right by history, time and time again.
I really like how he phrases that.
If it's not authority, it is sheer power, which
Yes.
is what has happened.
But that authority needs a certain amount of love and sentiment attached to it. And
that's what you had with Trump, by the way.
We don't have that in our leaders at fucking all.
But you do have that in Trump. I do think you do. I think Trump and
Trump will crawl over broken glass.
People love Trump, and I think Trump loves the people. I mean, like, you can say it's all for show, and maybe it is, but he certainly comes off as if he loves America and he loves the people, and the people love him. Holy shit!
But see, the thing of it is, I don't mind a politician that craves the attention of his people. Like, that's the way it should be.
It should be. You should crave.
A monarch should have the affection of his people.
You know, right? And you should love them in a protective, fatherly sense, and they should love you back as thank you for protecting us. You know, that was exactly what happened with Trump. That was why he was so popular.
I actually think that's kind of his legacy. He will go down as the most beloved politician we've ever seen in our lifetime, and no one else even comes close.
I mean, they say you know half the country hates him, and they certainly do. But why do they hate him? They've been propagandized into thinking he's this great Satan.
I can guarantee you, 80% of people, probably closer to 90, if you said to them, "Give me 5 reasons why you dislike Trump," I guarantee you they wouldn't be able to tell you like anything outside.
He's
of
a Nazi. He's a racist. He's a sexist. That's what they'll tell you. They can tell you buzzwords. They can't tell you something real.
Okay, so here's the thing: if I were to say to people, "Give me 5 reasons why you dislike Trump," and you can't say his Twitter or his mean words, I guarantee you they will have no answer. Most people will have no fucking idea. They wouldn't be able to name a single fucking policy.
The wall is bad because like I really he hates immigrants, but it's always about like every single one of their contentions for the most part always comes down to, and I mean this in terms of like I spoke to Destiny the other day, right? We debated on Jan 6, and it was just a short talk. We talked for about like 30 minutes, but what I found is that I thought, and I didn't think about it at the time. I think I touched on it a little bit at the time. But it came down to solipsism. Every time it comes down to solipsism, and I used that word. He said, "Stop using that word at me." I'm like, "No, I'm going to keep using the word because it's apropos." You are saying that you know what Trump was thinking.
He has no idea.
I don't think you can do that. I think you can. So if we're talking about what he brought up was like, if you're talking about a criminal trial, right? You have to put together the evidence to say like, this is what this person's intent was. Okay, sure. But Trump's been cleared twice from that. What you are down to
He
is you
hasn't
have
even
to
been
think that
fucking
you
charged of
know
anything.
what Trump. I did a poor showing on Destiny stream. I'm not there to win. I was there to have a conversation with Destiny. I'm not trying to win shit, Giza. Just saying. I think that how to spell solipsism? I'll put it in the chat later. I don't think that he was able to. He had some good points, but I don't think he was ever really able to show outside. I mean, he said like because of the stuff with Pence that was indicative. Like maybe you can keep. Okay, maybe, but I still think you're gonna have to tell me that. How do you know what Trump was thinking that he intended to cause? I mean, how is that going to happen? By the way, with a bunch of unarmed civilians, how is that going to overthrow the U.S. government?
It's not.
I'm really not. I've and how and that's another thing. How could you have imagined that Trump would think that that would work? If that's what he was thinking, and all of this is trying to get inside of another guy's head, which it's not. I don't like that as argumentation. I don't think that's a good point. Having a chat with someone who was trying to promote a narrative says it all.
I mean, that's kind of true. He has a point there. As much as I might disagree with it, but yeah, there is a point
Destiny, there. He said he wanted conservatives on to talk about it, and I was like, okay, sure. I'm going to talk to you about it for 30 minutes.
But here's
the thing. I spent like 4 hours on it.
Yeah, but Destiny is always in debate me bro mode. That's like his main sort of function.
Yeah.
And his thing, this is the thing that I've noticed with Destiny. He doesn't actually try to make his point better, just yours worse.
No, he just yes, that's his tactic.
That's his tactic, yes.
is to not really to make a point himself, but to try and discount yours. But yes. I don't think he was able to get out for me on the solipsism claim. There's a reason I think he told me to stop using the word.
I mean, look, it's. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The idea that a bunch of rowdy, unarmed Trump supporters are going to somehow stage the Capitol and successfully stage a bloodless coup against the most militarized nation on earth is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. And anyone who thinks that was a legitimate attempt at overthrowing the government is a lunatic. Like, how did you think this was going to go down? Like,
I don't know.
Like, even did you see the Krasensteins with Destiny against Alex Jones and Greenwald on Twitter yesterday? It was like 4 hours. It was complete shit, by the way, because
oh no, I didn't watch that.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, Alex, I've no disrespect to Alex, but he doesn't do well in groups. He tends to just be belligerent and loud and himself, really. And in groups, it doesn't do well. Like in one-on-one, he tends to do well. Like he did well on Tucker, for example. But in a group, he just is all over the place and tends to be the sort of comedic acting figure. Glenn Greenwald, for as little as he spoke, every time he basically just shot Destiny and the Krasensteins between the eyes, like an absolute fucking boss. And it was very obvious that the only person who came with actual sentiment points that wasn't just ideologically possessive rhetoric was Glenn. And he kicked the shit out of them. Like, ask anyone in the chat if you watched the debate yesterday. He fucking smoked them. He killed everyone on the freaking panel. He was great.
Because I know that you think you could smoke Destiny, which I've said before to you. Go on his stream. The thing is, when I tried to bring up other examples of people violating the Constitution, he said, no, but we're talking about Trump. That's whataboutism. So, I mean, like, I'm not saying that I did a great job because I wasn't trying there to go debate. I came in and I said at the beginning, changed my mind on J6. But if you're going to go in there and then immediately start bringing up other stuff to Destiny, he's going to tell you, no, you can't talk about that we're going to other things. And if you keep bringing up, he's just going to kick you. I mean, that's what's going to happen. Like, I'm just saying that's I already know what's going to happen. I've seen enough Destiny streams to know that's what's going to happen. If you keep bringing up stuff that he doesn't want brought up, because it's not directly related to the exact thing that you're talking about, and it's related, and even though it may very well be pertinent, because it may very well be pertinent.
Which is funny, because that is exactly what they do.
I know, exactly.
It's funny because Glenn brought that up in the stream yesterday. He literally said at one point, he just said, of course you guys want to talk about everything around January 6th and not January 6th itself, because you know you have no fucking argument. Because no one even charged Trump with insurrection. Right. So the idea that you were saying, oh, it's an insurrection, when even the law hasn't actually made that clarification, makes you look insanely stupid. Which is true.
You know, there was a storming of the Capitol in Colorado, right?
Oh, fuck off.
The leftists did that. They overran the Capitol there.
Yes.
No one there got charged with insurrection, right? They burned down DC for like 4 years. They kept rioting in DC, and so it wasn't a problem. And it wasn't a problem then. That was just a fiery, peaceful protest. Even though I think they also broke into the Capitol at one point in DC too. But it's, again, I'm telling you, if you bring that up, like this is, then he's going to be like, that's whataboutism, and shut it down. And it's just how it's going to work. Anyhow, I'm going to use the restroom. I'll be right back because I was eating a sandwich also. I haven't eaten dinner yet. Go ahead.
Meh.
Sheer power doing what? Sheer power really based on what? You see, here it comes the uneasiness, because after all, the European armies, with the possible exception of the French army, because never forget that the French army in 1958, in May 1958, was absolutely ready to strike and to snuff out the Fourth Republic. And only because people went on their knees before de Gaulle, and de Gaulle sourly and unwillingly and arrogantly finally said his yes to the receivership of the bankrupt Fourth French Republic, the military dictatorship of Massu didn't follow. And this was a situation which had now been repeated in the same months, almost in about the same days, not in 58, but in 68, where de Gaulle had made every conceivable preparation that if there would be a further deterioration of the French internal situation, really to take over. And the situation is very complex. You see, the communists, for instance, who are old line men in the whole game of the political forms and the political experience, they are terrified by the New West. They want to use it, but they see it's a very dangerous thing to use. We had in Italy, you had an Italian communist poet who has written an ode to the Italian police battling the students. And you see, roughly this ode begins, I'm trying now to give it to you freely as I remember it. I never took down the name, unfortunately, of that poet. He says, I'm greeting you, humble sons of workers in dingy factories. I'm greeting you, the policemen, humble sons of workers, of peasants in sun-drenched fields, spat upon and vilified by the long-haired, fat sons of the bourgeoisie. In other words, you see, the new left, the youth movement, which rebels for reasons I can very well see, because after all, I'm an old-line conservative, and I look at it to see from the other angle. But they do not think dialectically. They do not think what counterforces they bring finally on the plan. And there you see sometimes between this country here, I should say in all candor, and in Germany in 1932, I see certain analogies. And then, of course, Brüning, who was the counterplay of Hitler, whom I've met in this country here because I spent these years in your country, has told me how he tried to restore the monarchy to forestall the rise of a man like Hitler. And of course, Hindenburg said, no, I've given the oath to the Constitution, I'm a monarchist, I despise the Republic, but I can't do it. I'm bound. And then, of course, Schleicher, General Schleicher, who wanted to get the aid of the German trade unions to have a military dictatorship supported by the trade unions in order to forestall the rise of the Nazis. In other words, taking his cue from Miguel Primo de Rivera, the Spanish dictator, and the trade unions did not cooperate. What will we get? Will we get military dictatorships? Because you see, what Europe is now a country, and always has been a continent in the last 50 years, a continent of the provisional. And let me go only one moment back to France. How provisional Europe is, how the order really doesn't stick, is very well symbolized by a poster of the Soudet paint manufacturing company, which you could see in the French subways in the early 1950s. It showed 4 Mariannes. Marianne, as you know, is the symbol of the French Republic. Mm-hmm. A nice, healthy young woman with the Phrygian cap. And a 5th little Marianne looking around the corner. And the text said, the republics come and go, but the Sudet pains stay forever. And that, I think, highlights the European scene far, far better than some very big and fat books. The things are all rootless. The things are all hanging in question. There's a question mark.
That's a very good point. They're rootless. America suffers from this more than anything else. He's talking about France. But it is so much more exacerbated in the United States in terms of it being rootless. Always looking forward. The progressive march through history.
Your roots are in your race, but you don't want to admit it.
I mean, yeah, people don't want to. You know what? But it's only whites who won't admit that, by the way. every other ethnic group will.
Who made
And I
your
just read
nation? Who made your laws? Where they come from? They comes from England. America is a fucking offshoot of the British Empire. And they fucking know.
Right. I read this in Claudine Gay's research. This is in her research. She found this. In the former president of Harvard who got ousted for plagiarism in her own research, whether or not it was plagiarized. That's what she found. It's only she says, yeah, whites have a proclivity to vote for whites, but at the same time, blacks and Latinos largely vote for blacks and Latinos. For Latinos, the most so, like extraordinarily so, and are very active voters, unlike whites and blacks comparatively. That's what she found. I think I enjoy being able to cite the disgraced president of Harvard and being like, hey, there you go. That's her research. Damn.
Mark around practically everything in Europe, but it needs a certain perspicacity and a certain, let us say, fingertip feeling to discover really just that. But you see here military dictatorship, return of monarchies. Of course, there's the Russian dividing line, which makes everything provisional, doubly provisional in one sense, and irreplaceable on the other, because you don't want to change really horses in midstream, and Europe is permanently, so to say, in midstream. What will happen is very difficult to know. You only see the Hippocratic traits on the faces of European democracy. And for a last thought, let us go back again to the Acropolis. Well, the Acropolis is in a way the cradle of our entire Western civilization. And there you see the Areopag. And I mentioned to you Socrates, the condemnation of Socrates. And then you see the Syntagma place. And behind the Syntagma place, you see the royal palace. Where democracy was born, there was a king only until a few months really ago. And then there you have a military dictatorship.
Wow.
And you see what Polybius called the anakyklos, is the going around in great circles. They do not have to repeat themselves with photographic accuracy, but they do. And therefore...
And that's the endless bureaucracy. Repeating themselves. They might use different verbiage, but they repeat themselves over and over again. It's the same shit. It transforms into a slow erosion of everything in order to gain more power to these individuals who have no investment in the state because they're not part of it. It's not their country. It doesn't belong to them. Why would they care? Why would you care about something that doesn't belong to you? I mean, and that you've already gotten the value out of it. You find a purse on the street, you steal the wallet out of it. Why would you care about that purse anymore unless it's Gucci or something? It's some cheap purse. You steal the wallet, take the money out, and leave. Why would you care anymore what happens to the purse? Why do you care about what happens to that person's ID in the wallet? All the other things that might be important to them, pictures of their children. Why would you care? It's not yours. You took what was valuable. That's what democracy is. It's essentially a big. It's a theft. It's theft. Thieving from the people and telling them that you've done a good deed.
For as in the case of the rest of the world, one must be deeply and profoundly conscious of these ever-going changes and ever-going challenges, and never think that if you have achieved a certain form of government, that then history really comes to an end and the pendulum ceases to swing. It goes on and on swinging. Thank you so much.
Excellent. 60 years after the fact, post facto, still fantastic.
Dr. Leddihn, will you return with me to the rostrum, please?
He said Leddihn.
Yes.
You've informed me it's...
Same thing.
Is it Leddihn?
Yes,
Leddihn?
apparently. Yes.
I guess. Leddihn? Leddihn?
Leddihn sounds more
Leddihn.
German.
We have a number of questions, some of which I'm sure you have touched upon, but I'm going to ask them and give you a chance to enlarge on it, if I may. First question, why should we expect the democracy of our founding fathers to fit the modern world atomic age?
Good question.
Well, there ain't no such animal. There was no democracy of the founding fathers.
Yes.
Their picture was radically different, and I think in many ways more modern than the concepts here today. Because I do not think, as I tried to express to you, that by counting noses, you really can come to rational conclusions. That, in other words, more democracy is more amateurism. And this is something we cannot afford. But on the other hand, in the same breath, I must always add that I'm terrified also by the prospect of experts in an administrative state ruling and administrating us in very cold blood.
Drive the bulldozer, drive the truck through Harvard Yard. There it is.
Yeah.
And that's what's become. The experts. Rely on the experts. He called it. He was completely, his fears were completely founded.
Yes.
Proven accurate by
On the
history.
money. Yes.
Wow.
So in other words, there is really a Scylla and Charybdis, but the founding fathers, curiously enough, were not as old-fashioned as we sometimes too readily assume.
What is happening to humankind? This questioner asks. The free seemingly want to enslave themselves. The
Yes.
enslaved are struggling for freedom.
That's a good question from the. Was this at a college, I presume? Do you know where this was given, this speech?
It's a convention in California.
Okay. Well, whoever asked that, that's a good question. We talked about that just earlier, didn't we? That it's
Yep.
that the free want to be enslaved, not literally enslaved, but they want someone to tell them what to do.
It's because they
Everyone
want
does.
purpose.
Yes, everyone does. It's eudaimonic, eudaimonia. People at some level want to be told what to do. I mean, it takes an extraordinary person, really, who can show up and just be like, all right, I'm going to do this, and these are things I want to do, and be completely self-led. Look at how every job works.
Yeah, that's not how people
Every
work,
job.
ever.
You go to work at Walmart. They're going to tell you what to do. Okay, you have to go. You go straighten up these aisles. You go run the cash register. Not that people like working at McDonald's, but if you didn't tell them what to do, they'd just stand around and twiddle their fingers. You have to tell people what to do.
Have you seen the second Matrix movie?
Yeah, of course.
Yes. You know the bit where...
Sorry, my brain was in a different... I wasn't expecting to switch to the Matrix, and I was like, what? Okay.
No, you know
yeah,
where Agent Smith meets Neo after he meets the Oracle again in the park.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives him this speech, and where he says, I've been unplugged, a new man, free, like you, so to speak. And then he gives like this speech where he says, we're not here because we're free, we're here because we're not free. And he gives this whole speech where he just says, like, it's purpose that unites us, it's purpose that drives us. And he like shoves his hand in his chest and is like, we're here to take what you took from us. Purpose.
Right.
And like, this is something that Jordan Peterson said on Joe Rogan with Eric Weinstein, when he just said, men who are men don't need money, they need function.
Yes, it's not just it's not just men who are men.
This is
all
why,
people need function.
This is why the people like Adam who thinks, oh, we can just have UBI, like, no, you can,
and sit around and coom and
you cannot imagine the devastating degradation of human spirit that you will unleash with that kind of state. Like, anyone who thinks that's going to be fine. Look
at the Rat Utopia experiment. Spoon.
Yes, and I don't understand how people can just think, oh, we can just give people money and they will suddenly turn into artists. Like, you're an idiot if you think this. That's not how humans work.
It takes... I it takes drive, and what drives people is survival. It's basic evolution. Yes, if you want to be an artist and that's what really drives you, but you're gonna have to make money doing it. And if
Yes.
you're not if you're gonna get money no matter what, why would you improve your art? Why would you make it? If it's like there's no reason to why should I make it? And I know that
People
Adam
want to do
thinks it, for
things.
example, go ahead.
People want to do things for recognition, whether people want to know it
Yes,
or not. But that's the thing.
absolutely.
You want to be revered for the work that you do by something or someone, either through the making of money or through the admiration of others. That is how
What was I
every
reading
human
this?
being does for fucking anything, or to leave a legacy behind. Like that is ultimately like the people just think I just want to do things for me. Like no, they fucking don't. Anyone who tells you that is fucking coping.
No, I don't think that's. I mean, I can't imagine if you only are driven by satisfying your immediate pleasures, you've got a lot of problems.
You're a drug
Like
addict.
that's not normal. That's how you become a drug addict. That's how you become an alcoholic. That's how
Yeah.
you become all kinds of. I mean, and you can be an alcoholic or a drug addict and have the other drives. But if it's your only drive, I don't think you're going to do anything productive. I just don't.
No,
If
you're
it's
not.
your only drive is to do what I want to do, then I don't think you're going to accomplish anything. You know what? When you when you I've said this many times. When you apply to doc school, they ask you to write something called a prospectus, and that is why should we admit you to a doctoral program? Because this is elite, right? You're about to join the elites or be allowed have the opportunity to join the elite academic ivory tower club. Why should you be allowed to join? And what I wrote on mine was to contribute positively to the wealth of human knowledge. I've said this many times. That is an intrinsically external drive, is to contribute so that others have knowledge to the wealth of it. And I think anybody being serious, if you're truly driven to do anything, it needs to be a little bit external. It can't just be to make me feel good. Now, like I said, remember I was talking real fast earlier, still am now, but why do I get so excited about research? Even shitty research, which actually I
Because
don't
you're a
think Dr. Gay's
dork.
research is that shitty. I think it's actually all right. It's just that she plagiarized, which is maybe why it's not that shitty, because she stole from other people, right?
Black
Um,
person who stole. Jesus Christ.
wow,
It's
right?
like a walking fucking
But I mean,
caricature.
it's gonna be something I'm gonna have to say. Is that like, hey, I can't find. I find her conclusion. She puts inner politics into it, which of course she does. But that's your conclusion section. You're kind of allowed to. That's your rant section in an academic paper. The only reason I read her whole CV is because it's like I need to understand who this person is. And when you've read as many academic papers as I have, you can very quickly read between the lines. You know, like I said at one point in my paper that in the script I'm writing, like AI is allowing us to detect things like plagiarism more easily. It has been for years, because it not just AI, but just put it into these programs online, and they can check to find if things have been copied. Um, you can't yet, although maybe soon, use AI to be able to do what I can do with academic research. Because you need to have read so many of them, and it's so human, right? It's so human. It's like I've talked about my favorite academic rap battle a bunch, where the two people were arguing, or the two groups of academics are arguing about whether or not video games cause violence, and it's
It
just like,
doesn't.
oh snap, damn, I can't believe he said that. But it's like just like some random line about like this was incorrect application of procedure, and it's the minor things, but because you never
Such
see
a
shit
nerd.
like that in academia, when you have read so much of it, you can peer between the lines in a certain way. That stuff AI can't do. And so that all that kind of stuff. My point is that these are real purposes for humans, and they bring me joy to do that stuff. But that's for what essentially my job is. Would I do that in a vacuum? Yeah, probably I would for fun because I genuinely enjoy it. But that's not like realistic. I'm not helping anybody if I'm just doing it for myself and not publishing it anywhere, right? What's the point? If I was just doing what I'm doing and I don't show it to anybody.
I actually
Or
said
or I
I actually said that in my comment section. Like if I didn't see the people's comments, I don't think I would actually do YouTube.
yeah.
Like how would I
I
know
mean,
if people like it or people don't like it?
well, it's for me again. It's to contribute positively to the wealth of human knowledge, so that other people can have access to this. From I have a unique skill. It's not a talent, it's a skill that I gained over years and years and years of doing this. This is not a skill. I mean, there's lots of people who have this skill. I think very few people apply it. And the few that do aren't going to because they're afraid.
But you also
Because
have
they're
a
afraid.
sassy voice.
Well, yeah, but they're afraid of academic repercussion.
And you can speak Japanese and make people act in a very
Not at all.
strange way when you do the high-pitched girly voice.
So well, I've
It's-
gotten off track
that
now. But in
scares
terms
the
of
crap out
it
of
goes
me
back
that
to,
you can do
we got on this into Adam's UBI thing of people will not just do things if they don't need to do them to survive.
He does
People
live
won't
in
even make
California,
art.
by the way, so let's just be honest.
I don't even think people would make art if they didn't need to survive. If you go
No,
throughout
they
all
would
of human
bust
history.
nuts and get high all day.
I mean, sure, we're talking about like cavemen, and they're sitting around in
Yes.
their cave. They have nothing else to do but draw. Like, sure, people will do things like that in out of boredom or to entertain themselves, sure. But we're talking about artists. When we go back to the Renaissance, I mean, artists needed a patron to survive.
I
And
would develop
would they
a
have
drinking habit and
produced?
drink myself into a stupor.
Would they have produced those great works of art if they hadn't been paid to do so?
No.
I don't think so. Maybe they would have made some amazing art, but I don't think they would have produced as much. I mean, if they were just paid to not, like, you can choose to do it or not. I think that it's worse today because we have so many distractions, right? We have countless distractions. And I feel bad whenever I play video games, which I do rarely. I was playing video games yesterday, and I was like, I feel bad about playing video games and not writing, you know? But which I shouldn't do. I should be allowed to play video games sometimes. Anyway, let's get back to Erik von Kuehnelt-Leddihn.
Yeah, you see, man is a dialectic creature. And if you speak about the leftist movements west of the Iron Curtain, it's quite true. You see, east of the Iron Curtain, the desperate desire for freedom. As a matter of fact, in all likelihood, I think many more people are reading voluntarily with interest Karl Marx west of the Iron Curtain than east. In my whole summer in 1963, which I spent in the Soviet Union, I encountered, and I've spoken with innumerable people, I have only encountered 3 truly convinced male communists. And I'm quite sure that if I would visit now, let us say the campus of the University of Frankfurt, I don't want to go too near to your home, then of course, and don't forget, and these students of the University of Frankfurt who demonstrated were physically attacked by workers' wives who hit them with their umbrellas and said, you swine, you go home and study, because you studied at our expense anyhow. You see here the dialectical nature of man. And the need to think here really dialectically, also not in a Marxian Hegelian sense.
I think you
Have I
touched
been
upon
pronouncing
this
Hegel wrong
question
all these
too,
years?
Doctor, but it reads,
I was expecting you to catch that as well.
Yeah, have I
Because
also been pronouncing
literally
Hegel
everyone
wrong?
says
Hegel.
yes, and he just says
Is it
Hegel.
Hegelian? I have no idea. I have no idea. He's closer temporally than we are.
I'm gonna be honest. If the entire world says Hegelian and he's the one guy that says Hegelian, I'm gonna go with him.
Yeah, just right. I would too,
Just-
probably. I would have to change. I won't remember. Just like I'll keep forgetting. I'll keep calling him Lenin for some reason.
And if anyone says to you, "Oh, well, that's wrong," it's
primacy
like
effect.
Leadin said, like, this is how you pronounce it, and fuck off because he's right and you're all wrong. It's true.
has any country in the world ever really been a democracy?
A direct democracy you really had in a number of Swiss cantons. Of course, they have no female suffrage. You see, that is because a woman
based as fuck?
Ooh, he's going full based.
doesn't bear arms in Switzerland. And
You can have some small democracies, democracy contingents, or democratic societies, but only if there's no woman suffrage. I agree. I think you
True.
probably this is part of his contention as well too in his broader book, which is that, like, yeah, sure, you can have aspects of society that are democratically elected, like a sheriff, right, a local sheriff. Sure, you can vote for the sheriff if the king is cool with it. Then all right, then that makes sense because the local population is going to know who they want to be sheriff more than the king will. And that's his whole argument for how he lays out his idea of the constitutional monarchy. But I think once you get women involved, because women I'm not. I don't want to do this pick me shit. And it's not what I'm doing. It's not why I'm saying I say stuff like this. It's not trying to be pick me. What
It's
I'm
just true.
saying is that it's true, and women. It's not that men unilaterally and inherently think with pure logic. Of course they don't. That's why we're monarchists and not in favor of democracy. But men are more able to do it than women. To any degree that anybody is. Men are more able than women. Women are far more group oriented, so they will go with whatever their girlfriends are doing. And they're going to think emotionally and not logically. And that's what happens.
And you are only fully a citizen in the Swiss mind if you bear arms. Don't forget, this is the country where you serve your country every year until you're 42 years old. You can volunteer until 55, and where in every public office is the picture of the commanding general, never ever of a president. In other words, Switzerland, which is the model democracy, is a military democracy. No. But it is, if you forget now the lack of it, it is a very, very genuine democracy. That's really the case. And so have been other smaller countries, but as soon as the country is really very large,
yes, this is
there are too many sieves.
Yeah.
And of course, the founding fathers never envisaged a democracy. The word democracy neither appears in the Declaration of Independence nor in the Constitution.
Nope.
The word republic appears neither in the Declaration of Independence nor in the Constitution of the United States, only as an adjective. Member states must have a republican constitution. United States is not called a republic. Even a man like Jefferson still thought about the possibility, and this is a language strange to the man in the street,
Sure is.
that a free people can be ruled by a monarch.
Yep.
And the phrase, I hope you read the fine print in the Declaration, and not only the preamble. Yep. George III, a prince not fit to be the ruler of a free people. Because we always are going to be ruled. We never can really rule ourselves. So that's a paradise dream. And all our effort should be to be as free as possible and feel the heavy hand of government as little as possible.
Holy fucking based. I mean, perfectly said. You are always going to be ruled. The goal should be to feel the hand of government as little as possible, to be as free, I would say more accurately, to have as much liberty as possible. Which he would, I think, also agree with. That I think maybe the word liberty over freedom there is better. But that was perfectly said. And that's exactly where Spoon and I come from. Is that we agree in order to well, we agree with Leddihn, which is that in order to maximize liberty,
you must have
democracy is not going to do it. It's not going to cut it because there will be a tyranny of majority. It will happen inherent because that's how people work. They go on social identity. What group am I a part of? In-group versus out-group preferences and favoritism and hatred. Whereas this is outside of what would concern a monarch. And so what you're hoping for, what you're aiming for, what you should be aiming for in society, if to obtain maximum liberty, not freedoms, because freedom is often degenerate, right? Just poor freedom, just do whatever you want. That's not good, okay? Maximum liberty is better protected under a monarch than in-group, out-group, democratic fighting mentality. An excellent point on the Founding Fathers as well.
There were several questions submitted that followed this same type of wording, Doctor. Is democracy going to fail in the United States? And if so, why?
I'm giving to this a philosophic answer. An unnamed Viennese philosopher once said, everything in the Viennese dialect, it sounds nicer. Everything has an end, only the sausage has two. And there has never been a form of government which in history lasted forever. But the only burning question is, and think about Germany in 1932, will there be something better to follow or something worse? And therefore, you see, these needs thinking or rethinking. What would happen to this country if in the next 8 years, or 4 or 8 years, law and order will not be restored? What are then the aspects or prospects? You know, everything is, sometimes the evolutions are very slow. Think about the Medicis.
I want to pause him here for 1 second. I know he said this in 1968, and people would say, well, that prediction didn't come true. It wasn't a prediction, by the way. I think he said presume or assume. But apply this to now. Apply this to now, when things are so tense, right? Think about it, because it is possible. I don't think you should ever anticipate that it's impossible for your government to fail, because every government eventually has failed. Every single one throughout human history. Nice. I mean, that's Aristotle. That nice quote about the sausage on boat has 2 ends. Curious.
Drugstore people from
true.
Florence. 350 years it took them to become Grand Dukes of Tuscany. They had the patience. You see, everything changes. Everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
A Christian verb says, the world whirls around and only the cross stands.
True.
Never attach yourselves to values which one day will perish or must be adapted or must be radically changed. Will it be a military dictatorship? A military dictatorship, of all forms of dictatorship, is still the mildest form. Look at the liberalization of present-day Spain. But we must, you see, all these things must be viewed and thought with a certain amount of secular impiety. You see, secular impiety. But think about the basic ideals. And the basic ideal is not the majority ideal. It's, of course, not the equality ideal. The basic ideal is personal freedom. And the question is, if it comes to the worst, what form of government, under what form of government is there a good chance that freedom, personal human freedom, free enterprise, the idea of liberty will really be preserved? And very often, as the Italian case I told you about the Italian elections, it may be not the idea that you just count votes.
Dr. Leddihn, I know that in your talk you referred to the question of authority versus power.
Real quick, though. Sorry to think about that for a second. It might not be that the worst restriction on liberty, or that it even is related to liberty at all, that you can't vote. Something to think about. Something to think about.
From what you told me that you have lectured at San Francisco State, do you think that the problem that we're facing there today and the militancy shown by those students involves the question of authority versus power?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how you refer to, but in a chaos, if chaos is anywhere, and if authority fails, power inevitably will come into play. This may be either the power of the many, the power of the mobs, because also that is power, don't forget that.
Yeah.
Or the power of those whose legal and constitutional task it is to restore law and order. Then, of course, the appeal to authority, if authority has been destroyed, and authority has been destroyed in many parts of the world.
God, how much worse it is now.
Power is the only answer. But of course, for heaven's sakes, I would say power which is intelligently and generously, very important word, and generously used.
This questioner asks, some representatives to the European Economic Community express that there is a need for political integration as well as economic integration. Will you please comment, both pro and con?
I would say certainly that we have to integrate economically, that we also have to integrate politically. But of course, we should be careful in the latter, because the genius of Europe, every continent or every country has its own genius, is diversity. In other words, that this integration of Europe, I think de Gaulle's formula doesn't necessarily mean de Gaulle's ideas. Une Europe des patries. That means a Europe of fatherlands, but coordinated. That should be very, very definitely our ideal.
I know what he means here. I think I understand. That's not what ended up happening, though, of course. He is saying that it's diversity of ideas, diversity of the European cultures in getting along. And this is coming out of someone who, again, lived through the two great world wars, the two major brother wars in Europe. Excuse me. So I think that he's saying that it's better for them to come together through ideas. And I can understand why, even though he clearly foresaw so much of this other stuff, why it would have been idealistic in 1968. But, oh, I didn't call that one, Eric, unfortunately.
And of course, obviously, in close cooperation with the other free countries of the world, and that means primarily, of course, the United States. Because the Atlantic Ocean really is a binding piece of water.
Is the university student unrest in Florence and Paris communistic inspired, in your opinion?
I don't think so in its origins. Of course, wherever there is disorder and anarchy, the communists will try to utilize this to their own ends. Mm-hmm. But it is equally true that the French Communist Party was really desperate, and from that owed.
Look at the BLM stuff. Yeah. There was animus. They spiked the animus. The media intensified the animus, and the leftists used it to gain political power. I don't know if I don't think that the average person who was going out there and breaking into Nike stores was thinking about communism, right? They just wanted to they wanted their own personal gain. However, such movements are useful to that end.
To the police by a communist writer, you can see very well indeed how the Communist Party is unhappy about it. Because actually, the student riots and the student ferment is one of an anarchical character, not of a communistic character. And the anarchists, you must leave it to the anarchists, were that group in the old Soviet Union who fought on against communism long after all the other parties had given up. Because there's the curious thing. You see, the anarchist stands for total liberty, and the communist for total control. And finally, in 1924, immediately after the death of Lenin, all anarchists in all Russian prisons were all rubbed out. So you see, the anarchists are a very uneasy partner for communism.
Maybe.
Do the political coalitions in Western Europe tend to provide more democratic rule than America's two-party system?
I don't think so, and primarily for the reason, because if you have three parties, for instance, and the third party is very small and sits in the center, I'm thinking here especially of the old German center party.
Yep.
Then you can get a minority tyranny, because that party is going to align itself in one vote taking with the right and the other vote taking with the left, and can play out one party against another. That's the reason, Lasky said.
And you find this is exactly what you find in a bunch of these European systems that have multi-party, European states that have multi-party systems. They form coalitions, and then you do end up with tyranny of the minority because they form coalitions and work with each other. So you might have one party that is technically wins, so tyranny of the majority, but then you end up, because they align with all these smaller parties, the smaller parties dictate what they want, and then you end up with tyranny of the minority, actually, who ends up getting their stuff still pushed through because of their coalition.
The two-party system gives you the optimum. But the two-party system is not something you can decree. The two-party system is something which comes naturally. And it came in America in the past very naturally, because you had an enormous political uniformity in this country. So that, let us say, a liberal Republican and a liberal Democrat had more in common than a conservative Democrat and a conservative Republican. In other words, it cut across state lines. If you took, for instance, a subway in New York, and you took out, let us say, 6 p.m., all the 10,000 human sardines, every one of them, if asked, would believe in the Republic as the best and most modern form of government. And 999 out of 1,000, except the one who read the Founding Fathers, would have believed that democracy is the most ideal procedure. You do the same thing today in Spain. You stop the Madrid or the Barcelona subways. They are broad gauge. They have many more human sardines than the New York subway. And of course, the one would be a liberal Democrat. The next one is a Trotskyite communist. The third one an anarchist. The fourth one a liberal monarchist. The fifth one a traditionalist monarchist. The 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. I can give you all the 28 different groups. And when I once talked to a Spanish lawyer and said, my dear friend, you had 28 different parties at the last free election, the man pounded the table and said, this is a dirty lie, because we have 28 million different parties. As many parties as there are Spaniards. But this is not conducive, and do not forget that brilliant passage in George Washington's farewell address, which was ghostwritten by Alexander Hamilton, when he said the party spirit, the factional spirit, they can afford it in the monarchies of Europe, but we can't afford it here. But you are in a situation now where such possibilities, the first time in your history, are really very concretely on the horizon.
Yep, very much so.
Dr. Erik von Kuehnelt-Leddihn, I want to thank you for being our speaker today, and I'm sure the members present at this meeting share my feeling. On behalf of the Commonwealth Club of California and those other members who will have the opportunity to hear you on radio, I thank you. I might tell you, gentlemen, that this Mr. Leddihn, we invited him 1 year ago to appear today. I think maybe we better sign him up again right now for a year from today.
It was fantastic. Excellent. There's some things he couldn't, some things I think he couldn't have predicted, maybe, but
obviously not.
overwhelmingly. He had such, because no one's a total prognosticator, but he had this shit. No, but he had this shit really figured out, clearly. Couple things at the end there, and those were on the fly questions that it was like where it was a little bit like I don't know, from the audience that maybe weren't as thought out. Kizza has sent us a bunch of super chats for 5. All of them are for 5. I'm gonna read them. He asks, speaking of Greece, it was a republic. Athena was a democracy. Sparta was a monarchical oligarchy. It was a 2-party monarchy. It was a very odd system, but it's fascinating. Which one was based again? Oh, that's right, Sparta. Yeah, true. Because for 5 says, Aydin, we all know who's responsible for the promotion of republics across the planet and who funded them. That ideology needs to be purged for good. Yeah. Aydin, my cure for marriage is so... Yeah, my cure for marriage is so brutal for women that the Abraham faiths will tell me I'm too harsh, but that institution will be forged in gold. I'm a Christian, man. So I'm not. I don't know. I'm not going to agree. Probably. I think that's the right way to go, but that's my personal opinion. Because it goes on. The current thing exists because of the empire being kind. I, as king, would make current thing be a reminder as to why I am feared in that realm. Yeah, I know, Kizza, you want to be a dictator, but that's not what we're advocating for.
Yeah, Kizza, you're a psychopath.
Jesus.
Straight up, your desire to literally to anyone who opposes you is to kill. You're a tyrant in waiting.
Which is not what we are promoting. We are advocating for a good king who will function in the hierarchy the way that the father does in the family. Which is the role of kings.
Psychopath.
Not now. I know that it's you're thinking that the way that you get rid of all the cancer in society is to just kill people, but that creates martyrs. That destroys things too, and that's not longitudinally great. Not gonna work. Spoon/Aydin. DEI wouldn't exist in a society built around meritocracy. That's true. As DEI is garbage, yep. And we'll end up like the dodo, bye-bye. We'll see. The last great statesman in England was Enoch Powell, and he was a brigadier in the military, a professor, a scholar, and had great wisdom like Leddihn. Yes, and Leddihn also, of course, was in the military. Fought in World War I. Hasselhopper for 5 says, JFK was so popular that Congress passed the 22nd Amendment to limit terms. While being so afraid of JFK's popularity, the amendment didn't apply to him. Yeah, and then they killed him. Well, yeah, it's I think that is FDR, yeah, not JFK.
Not JFK.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I think that I thought that was FDR. They
Yeah.
just killed JFK, Hasso.
Yeah.
Straight up. Batman for 10 says, I think the elimination of standards standards are destroying society. For example, comics. Comics used to be art both both out of artistic and story. Now they are not even worth the paper they're printed on. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Comics are a great example. And the movies that are based on them and TV shows. Kids Up for Another £5 says Aiden women can't handle accountability as a default. I would agree. Also, on the pick me slur, it's better to be a pick me than a skip me or an abuse me ho. Yeah, I mean, I think there are there are women who are legitimately pick me's, and then it gets used just to be like, yeah. Oh, hey Spirit. Well, let's a konbanwa here. I think that's it though. I hope you guys have enjoyed this special Sunday stream where we got to watch a I loved that Spoon. That was fantastic. You know?
Indeed.
I know you've listened to it a couple times. I thought that was a fantastic lecture. He's I'm always blown away by the
Sheer depth of
intelligence.
his capacity to look at the
Yeah, and
world.
that he can just pull stuff the way that he does. You know, even quotes. He might have some of it in notes, but and that he can just speak so many languages
I
and
kept
go in and out of
thinking
them.
about his bit on authority and power.
I know. Yeah, the authority and power part was fantastic.
Yeah,
It was
that
absolutely
generally
excellent.
scared me when he says, in the absence of authority, you'll just have sheer power. Like,
yeah.
that
Of
generally
course.
scares the crap out of me.
But that's where we're headed, unfortunately.
Yes,
If it's not where we already are.
It's funny because Molbach said the same thing. He just said
Well, we think Molbach probably got it from, to be fair.
They wouldn't try to overlap, but he said our current elite actually they don't feel the right to rule, and they don't. And Scrum even said this, like, the elite do crave our attention and our affection.
Absolutely.
They just really suck at it.
Yeah.
Because they don't
They're
actually
terrible
have
people.
that. They don't have that element of. They're not all
Why
like
do they hate Trump so much?
They're not.
Why do they
all
hate Trump
like,
so much?
But the Klaus Schwab thing, like, that's not how most of them actually reason.
Yeah. But one of the reasons they hate Trump so much, one of the many reasons, is because Trump inspires genuine love, like an affection from his fans.
Yeah, because
You want to call them fans, but I don't really care. I've been to Trump rallies. It's insane. These people, they love this man, and they want him to save them. You know, I mean, and that which is kind of weird to think about, but that's it. When you look at it from the hierarchical system, it's just like, Dad, you know, I'm in trouble. I need you to help me. Which happened to me in my life for sure. You know, like my car is broken down or something, or it's been like, oh, Dad, I'm in a pickle. I need you to help me because you're my dad. And that's how we're built. You know, on some level, we are all built that way to respond to things in that way. You, at some point, like, yeah, you become an adult yourself, you become a father yourself, but there is also that, or you know, speaking in just masculine hierarchy terms. But there's still always, like, that you can rely on your dad on some point, even though when you have to take care of him, but then you can rely on him for wisdom, even when he's older. Even if you have to take care of him physically or financially or something, you can always rely on your father for something. That's the structure of humanity. It's hierarchical. So, and we look at everything through this lens because we're just apes, okay? You know, it's not complicated. And I think that's why monarchy makes the most sense. And the people who always catastrophize and say, well, what if the monarch's evil? Kill him. Leadin started out his talk with that. Kill him. It's way easier. I know that people always jump on me and be like, oh, going to violence? Yeah, that's human nature.
V just said democracy is shit.
V?
Yes.
Where?
In a live stream.
In here?
Someone just linked it to me.
What?
Yes.
Did he just say it in a live stream?
Yes.
Well, it is shit. I was considering that we just listened to V's great grandfather, allegedly. That's probably a good way to end it.
Hold on. I
Thank
want to see.
Huh?
What is it?
You want to keep going? Sure. What's
Let
that?
me see. 48. Let me see. It doesn't help that I can't see. Oh, hold on.
Huh?
No, I'm trying to.
Huh?
I'm trying to find.
What are you looking for?
Oh, here we go. Here it is. Hold on.
Let's see. What?
Can you see that?
What? Pushing a new watch together?
Yes.
Okay. Got it up?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, hold on.
You might want to put it on the screen.
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm just trying to... Okay, so V just said this just now, apparently. I've not heard this. My friend just sent it to me. Like, okay, this is what V just said now.
I know, right? I know, V. Why is it? But why is it? Why is it that? I mean, I'm an American, but why is it that more Europeans know this shit than Americans do? It's exactly what Leydihn was just saying. Is that like most Americans have no fucking clue? They've not read the Constitution. They've not read the Declaration of Independence. They just no audio on Vsvid. Fuck. What? Oh shit.
No, yeah, hold on a sec.
Go back. Go back.
Yeah.
Go back. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Did you play it?
Democracy is an excellent political system. No, it's not. Okay, the American founding fathers. Why the fuck do I know this? Why do I know this? I'm a Romanian.
Because only non-Americans know it.
Fuck. The American founding fathers, one of their greatest concerns was democracy, because you have people that once in power, right, like they can vote whatever the fuck they want.
By the way, the reason why we know this is because you Americans hold the world reserve currency, and you are a bunch of invasive fuckwits who think you rule the world, and you stick your fucking military and everything, and
yet know nothing. And yet know nothing. And I'm saying this as as an American who's lived abroad, who's you know, I've not been all around the world and stuff. Obviously, I've been in America and here, right? Okay, but even that, just living outside of America, for just a couple years, it will change your perspective on things as an American.
See why the world hates you.
Well, I can see why the world hates us, and I can also see, help me see better, like what the problem. I mean, I've read the founding fathers' documents. I've read their writings.
The Federalists.
They were not in favor of democracy. This whole thing, our democracy, it's a farce.
Hated democracy.
Yes, and it's funny.
Even the left now worships. As a joke is like,
I know.
Alex, you need to calm down.
But it's like but the left now worships Alexander Hamilton because they made that musical about him where he's a black guy. But none of the people who like that musical know anything about Alexander Hamilton at all. They have no clue that guy that you're supporting hated democracy.
He said the president should rule for life.
I know. That dude that you love on the left because you watched a musical starring all black people in it hated democracy.
By the way,
because democracy is cringe and gay.
By the way, can I just say that whole thing makes you come off like extremely insecure. Like any
it
black,
does,
yes, because black people, the world all over, you basically, that's an admission that you know nothing about your history. You were just literally labor slaves with no fucking ties to anything. You know nothing about your culture, and you have to steal ours because you suck and know nothing. That's
it's like
that
shit. That infamous clip from the Cleopatra documentary where it's an old black woman. She's like, I don't care what history book you've read. My grandmother told me that Cleopatra was black. And it's like, okay, cool. Your grandmother was wrong. Your grandmother's fucking wrong, and so are you.
Yeah, it's
Cleopatra was not black. Sad. She was a Greek. And it's crazy. Like, and the thing that's nuts about that stuff too is that there are interesting parts to African culture. There are interesting stories from these tribal cultures that I think they're very universal kind of heroes myth stories as they exist in every culture. But some of them, there's the cool imagery in them that you could have adapted. You could adapt stuff like that, but they won't.
Take a look at Black Panther. How's the king decided?
He has to. It's like a warrior thing.
Yes, it's through combat.
Combat, yeah.
Yes.
Well, it is monarchical as well in that it's lineage, but
yes, but they still fight with spears.
They still fight.
And
yeah.
It's like Jesus fucking Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone just said, isn't it amazing that an advanced society like still uses like spear chucking? It's like, my God, like the
You
level
can't
of just like
quote the
subtle
start
racism
of
is hilarious.
Hasselhoff says you can't quote the start of Alexander Hamilton on YouTube. It hides your chat when you post it. What Alexander Hamilton? Alexander Hamilton. I can't quote that. Just saying his name twice. Is it like summoning the boogeyman? Or what was it? Not the boogeyman. What is it? The Bloody Mary. You say Alexander Hamilton 3 times in the mirror. Does
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 he,
he does he
appear?
does he show up and tell you that democracy is cringe and gay? That would be based.
I would totally like that.
What else does he say? Is that it?
It's quite funny. Mulbach
And
calls
like,
Hamilton America's first monarch because he's the
Should have
one
been.
who ruled the Washington administration. 'Cause
Yeah,
he was like
yeah.
he was the first
Yeah.
secretary of the Treasury.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't
real leader of
hate
the Hamilton
Hamilton.
administration.
I watched it recently, and I didn't hate it. I thought, but I'm a big sucker for musicals. So Aaron Burr is deleting the chats. Yeah. uh, I like musicals, and it's and by the way, the stage play, it's really well choreographed. It's really well done. I liked it. I cried because it gets
What?
emotional moments in it. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I actually quite
God,
enjoyed Hamilton.
you're
I'd like
gay.
to even see it live. It's 3 the fuck hours long. But yeah, I'd go see that on Broadway. I thought it was excellent. I mean, I don't know what I'd rather see on Broadway. Not Cats. What do I like to see? Oh, Jesus Christ Superstar, but I've seen
What
Jesus
would you
Christ
rather see
Superstar.
on Broadway?
Jesus Christ Superstar.
People getting robbed?
Well, not anymore. You know, New York was like that back in the day. The last time I was in New York in Manhattan, down on Times Square. You know, it's weird. It's a weird place to be. It's a lot. It's a lot like Vegas, and like it does not feel like reality. It feels like you've gone into an adult, in that it's aimed at adults, fantasy world where like I mean, there's porn being sold everywhere, but it's not. There used to be like in the 70s, there used to be like a penny porn theaters on Times Square, if you can believe that shit. But no, it's just it's all this advertising. It's really weird. I'd see Book of Mormon. Yeah, Book of Mormon probably I'd see that in Broadway. That I've always wanted to see that, and I've never seen that musical. But if you do you know how much it costs for tickets to these things just see like one stage play in Broadway? You have any idea how much that is? It's like $200 per ticket. It's insanely expensive.
It's
So-
flawless.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's insane. Now,
Yeah,
you know, since we're going to Vegas this year, you want to go to Vegas?
No.
Everybody's so lame. No one wants to come to Vegas with me.
Because you're
Reed,
fucking going to Vegas.
I like Vegas.
I don't.
You've never been.
I don't want to.
It's fun. It's fun.
I'm saving all my money to buy a new computer.
Oh, true. I probably should do that actually, to be fair, but I'm going to go to Vegas. What? You can do both.
And yes,
yeah,
half of the stream is funding that.
No.
No. The computer,
I mean, sort
not
of.
the
I
Vegas
guess. I mean,
trip.
oh yeah, technically. I mean, well, no, it is technically.
I mean,
Because
we do.
it's good the Geeks and
use-
Gamers thing.
I mean, we do use money from the stream to live and make
Yes,
things.
yes, to live and to buy things that we need to keep
I mean,
making content.
the
and stuff.
microphone that I'm currently speaking on was basically bought
Yes.
by the money from the stream.
Which is a
Yes.
very expensive mic.
Comparatively speaking, yes. I might actually buy another piece of equipment for it.
Mm.
I don't know what I want to buy. There's like do you know what a valve amp is?
No,
Okay, so you've
is that what Gabe Newell uses? Thanks. That's what I get for working with Microsoft.
no.
Gaben.
Okay. Do you know what a guitar amplifier is, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah, okay.
Yes, and tube amps like works with cathode tubes, which is like basically like actual metal
Yeah.
particles are heated.
Yeah.
Yes, and that drives the sound. And it's very fragile, but there's a warmth to it that solid state and
Oh, I'm not gambling in Vegas, by the way. JKGZ. No, I don't understand gambling. It doesn't make sense to me. It's the one
21,
vice
when I
I
think.
can't even comprehend. Sorry, go ahead, Spoon.
Yeah, and so basically they were replaced by solid state circuitry, which is a lot cheaper to manufacture, is not as prone to damaging. It's a lot more can withstand a lot more wear and tear, but it doesn't have that warm quality that the tubes do. And as a consequence, yes,
The internet's a series of them. Did you know that?
I did not. But the
Oh,
reason
it is.
why
It's a series of tubes.
there's a reason why guitar amps that are
It's not a big
tube-based
truck.
are valve-based are so expensive. It's because they're basically
Mm-hmm.
technology that's been used since like the 1950s. And
Yeah.
it should tell you something that even 50 fucking years later, people still use the same technology as they did from the 70s, or that's 70 years later, because no solid state technology can actually replicate the warmthness of. No, I didn't, because I'm busy thinking of fucking valves, you twat.
You didn't get my meme.
No, and so I was looking at essentially a compressor and de-esser that
Mhm.
can.
Did you bypass the oppressor?
I want to beat you to pieces right now. Just with the rolling pin to thump you, because I'm trying to explain something to you and you're too busy thinking of fucking memes, you asshole.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I basically want to get a preamp that does that. Because something that I've noticed with this mic, messing around with the parametric EQ, it does make the high frequency boosting does make the S's really unpleasant.
Oh, we just get a pop filter for it.
No, it's not that. It's not the plosives. It's there's a pop filter in front of it right now.
Yeah, I would hope
yeah.
so.
Yeah, but I recorded once or twice with it before, and I thought, does it really make that much of a difference? And then I recorded it with it, and I'm like, holy shit, the difference is night and fucking day. But I basically want to make, I basically want to be able to have a high pass filter that would reduce the gratingness of the S's without me doing it manually.
Hasselhoff
afterwards.
says Spoon is still a preamp. He hasn't taken the plunge.
I want to set all of you on fire.
No one. I mean, look. I think it's interesting, and you'll have to talk to me about it because I don't know anything about this microphone shit. Honestly, I bought my Rode. I got my Rode mic. I got my shit set up, and I was cool with it. Going to shoot guns, Batman. I certainly hope I'm going to shoot a bunch of guns. That's why I was just asking Spoon if he wants to come because there's no way we don't go to Vegas and shoot a tank. You can do that in Vegas, Spoon. You can go out to the range and shoot a tank. Don't you want to do that? Don't you want to shoot a gun?
The last time I had anything to do with guns near fucking America, it denied me entrance into the Americas. So no.
Right, I forgot about that. Yeah, maybe not the best idea.
Yes, and I had to go to Canada instead because bizarrely,
Oh,
Canada
wow,
was not.
I'm so sorry.
No, this was like 2000 and this was during Trump's years.
Yeah.
Where Canada was not that gay. Canada just went like, "What are you doing here? I'm here for a holiday. Where are you staying? Here. How long are you staying for? A week. Have fun. That's it." Whereas America wanted to know all kinds of shit. Who are you staying with? How are you supporting yourself? Like, motherfucker, I'm going on holiday, you twats. What the
That's
hell are you
crazy.
asking me
They
this
didn't do that
shit?
when. Well, no, I don't know. When Bill first came over, they didn't do all that stuff to him. But then, like, COVID happened, and I haven't done it since. So I don't know. When did
Yeah,
Bill?
so
Bill, when did you come over to the States? 2018, I think. Yeah. 2019. Huh.
Yeah. And now, thanks to that, I have a permanent mark on my record, which means instead of going through the normal procedure, I have to get a fucking visa.
Spoon is a terrorist.
Yeah, so now I have to go to the American
I
embassy
know.
and make an appointment to get a visa, and even then, it's no
It's
fucking guarantee
insane.
I can get in.
I forgot you told me about that. Yeah. It's fucking
Yeah, so
insane.
I'm not exactly very impressed with America's system because
Yeah, but they can, but Mexican migrants can just pour over the border.
yes,
That's fine.
but how dare I, a white person that has money that to spend, I can't fucking do that.
Yeah,
So, Jesus,
great.
like, get fucked, America.
I love it. I love democracy. It's so
Bunch
great,
of
isn't it?
pricks.
Actually, did V have anything else to say in this clip that you want to play?
I
Is it
don't
just
know.
that?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
All right.
Like, once you mass of people that are in power, they can vote each other. They can vote for the stuff they want, and they can oppress everyone else. So as long as you have, like, you don't even need 51% of the vote in order to basically fuck with everyone. What you need is to have a group of people that's in charge, and then the vote is separated on so many issues that you can be like, you look at European elections, right? You make a coalition.
There you go.
And you have
I was supposed to talk about earlier. Yeah.
The people in power, like let's say that they're like a party that has 30% of the vote, and another party that has like 21% of the vote. They make a coalition. They give each other certain things that they want, and they oppress everyone else, right? So the founding fathers in the United States noticed this, and they said that, no, this is wrong. This is not a system that we want. So they create the concept of the American Constitution. And the American Constitution means that they can't vote whatever the fuck they want. And this is why the left is coping and seething so hard in America, because without it, you'd be like Britain. You'd have no free speech, you'd have no guns, you'd have absolutely no way to defend yourself against a tyrannical government.
I mean, V says that, but the Congress literally just can do whatever the fuck they want.
I mean, they can, but they're going to have a hard time doing things like repealing amendments.
Yes.
That requires a 3/4 majority vote to repeal an amendment. Hang on. Horwitz 5 and Horwitz for 5 says, if you do go to Vegas, get a pic or a selfie of the gold and silver pawn shop. Is it still open in Vegas? That'd be awesome. Love those guys. Pawn Stars. Pay those boys a visit at least once. Yeah, I've been to Vegas before once, but when I went to Vegas last time, I was a really broke doctoral student presenting paper at conference and no money. Couldn't do anything, basically. Here we go.
The founding fathers decided, all right, well, we're going to have the Constitution and we're going to give state rights because it makes sense that the person in Texas knows what's best in Texas than the person in Washington, D.C., right? Like the person in Ohio knows better what should be done in Ohio than the person from Washington, D.C.
Yep.
And the person in California thinks they know what's best for the entire fucking world.
And try to push it on everybody. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The United States is not a fucking country.
Or as V calls it, California.
Yes.
I don't know why people say it. It's in the fucking name. It's a union of states, right? So states' rights are more important than the federal rights.
Based.
Well, it's not that they're more important. Like state...
No, it is. V, you were right the first time. States' rights supersede federal rights. They should. They absolutely should. Mr. Twisted Frenzy for €5 says, have you seen Callum's recent video on his trip to European Russia? I have not yet. It's in my watch later thing. But yeah, recommend checking it out if you haven't yet. I'm going to watch it. I'll probably watch it after this because I've been wanting to. I just haven't found the time to yet.
States are the core, right? Then you have like the federal constitution which enforces, like limits the power of the states' right through the constitution. But like either than that, states' rights should vote and should... But this is like what's written by the founding fathers. The idea to defend our democracy is not an American concept. They don't value democracy. You guys value liberty and individual freedom.
Yeah, Leddihn points that out, that democracy is not written anywhere.
Yes.
Neither is republic, actually.
Nor is republic, yeah. As he pointed out, yeah. None of it's written anywhere in those documents.
No, it's not written anywhere.
So when you go on, when they go on and on about our democracy, my democracy,
or even republic,
it's always theirs.
It's not true.
Even the republic. Oh, I've said this before, but one of the things that if someone says this to me, what I'm about to describe,
we're a constitutional republic.
I will not respect anything that person says ever again, and I will often block them on Twitter. So if you'd like to get blocked by me on Twitter, here's how you do it. If I use the word democracy in a tweet, including if I'm mocking Democrats saying, quote, this is very dangerous to our democracy, and you respond by saying, actually, America is a republic, oh, fuck yourself. I'm glad that you learned something in first grade. I mean, like, I hate that type of Reddit pseudo-intellectualism. I was like, I'm glad that you know something everybody else knows. Even when I didn't call America a democracy. When I said these people were calling it a democracy, I'm like, actually, Aydin, I need to correct you. You don't know shit, homie. You don't know fucking shit. We just listened to a fantastic 2-hour long, it wasn't an hour, a 45-minute long lecture. It took us like 3 hours to go through it from someone who does know a lot of shit, or did. Rest in peace, Dr. Leddihn. But dude, like I can't even fathom what goes through someone's head when they see a tweet or something where someone uses the word. I think they have to have it like pinged or something. They have it like set up like in their search bars, like, did someone use the word democracy? I have to tell them that actually America's a republic. It's a democratic republic. Can you just fuck off forever? Anyone who does that is like the most insufferable human being. You are an idiot beyond comprehension.
It's quite funny because the people who say that are overwhelmingly Republicans.
I know. Well, it's Republicans and Democrats, but it's a lot of it's Republicans who are just like, actually, I don't care. I don't care. Get off Reddit. Get off Reddit and learn something instead of just like repeating shit that you don't understand in context in which it does not apply.
You know what I find
Jesus
funny
H.
about
Christ.
that? Is they say that, but then they also say, well, we fought and died for the right to vote. It's like, okay, so you are a Democratic, fuck off.
Yeah, of course.
It's like,
Of course.
retards.
Anywho, I think we're gonna head up for the night, lads.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Of course, you can watch the entire, if you didn't want to hear our commentary and just want to watch the lecture at any point over again, it is available on Spoon's channel. The Aristocratic Utensil, you can find the whole, the entire lecture there that you can watch on your own if you'd like to listen to it, as I think it is a
Long
really
live the
fascinating,
Kingdom of Austria.
fascinating lecture. Thank you.